I don't care who you are. You could be the president of the United States. You have a terrible person that's telling you things that you don't want to hear or that you probably shouldn't be hearing. You're going to start to believe that about yourself. And so that's sort of like what ended up happening. And it was, I mean, it's basically been 2 years of training that out of not just me, but a couple of the guys as well.
That hit me in a way that I wouldn't say it was positive for me, but at the same time, I've got to use that and say, hey, how can I grow from that? How can I be better? And that's really where I'm at from that standpoint. Do I feel like that's me? No, but how can I grow from that situation and create a world where that's not the case, that anyone says that about Brian Flores?
Live from 50th and Capitol Avenue in the Big O. This is Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone, 1620thezone.com, and 1620 The Zone TV. Now here's Gary, Nick, and Jimmy.
I just got 3 things to say. God bless our troops. God bless America. And gentlemen, start your engine.
It's Hump Day. It is Mornings with Sharp and Handley here on 1620 The Zone. It's Nick, it's Jimmy, and it's Joey. Or Joe. I know at one point we're going with Joe.
It's up to you today.
It'll always be Joey to me.
Is it up to us?
Although he had a twist on your name to throw into the rotation.
Yeah, you're Colbert. I thought maybe we could make it a little bit more exotic and call you Colbert.
So
like
Joe
it.
Colbert.
Joe
alter
Colbert.
Ego.
There you go.
See what Steven says about that.
It's like Stefan Urkel.
Well, yeah, then people will be like, oh, is there any relation to Steven? And then you can
No,
just make
sir.
them wonder. You can make them guess. But we are happy you're with us.
Part of the New York Colberts. We don't really associate with them.
Or the Staten Island, yes, Colberts. It's Nick Handley, it's Jimmy Chavez, and it's Joe Colbert. That's what it's going to be today.
Or
And it
Joe
is a hump day.
Warhol.
Oh, well, yeah, that's true,
Ooh,
too.
I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm friends with you on Facebook. I know how that goes.
And if it's on Facebook, it's official.
It's official.
Halfway through what is game week. I mean, it is still game week, even though we are still counting down the days to the first game for Nebraska, which if you are doing that exercise, we
It's
are.
under now.
Yeah, we're under 10 days.
Or we're at 10?
We're at 10 days and 4 hours right now.
How about that?
10 days and 4 hours. Speaking of 10, we've got 10 single-digit jersey guys to talk about.
Miss Davis was a 10.
There is only one offensive player. We'll get to that, though, because that's kind of interesting. 9 out of the 10
Our defense.
single-digit guys.
Yeah.
Our
Defense wins.
Is Nebraska back because they are a defensive dominant team? Well, we got to be dominant
They're
first.
the 1986 New York Giants.
You couldn't bring up the Bears. Fine. I get it. Hard Knocks last night, by the way. Hard Knocks was awesome.
You can't compare everyone to the 85 Bears because they still have to go to a certain level to be there. So if I'm just throwing that around, then it's like, oh, listen to the Nebraska radio comparing them already to the 85 Bears. However, if we say that in 8 weeks, we probably have some stuff to back it up.
Well, that would be good if they put out that performance, especially on September 7th. That would be a very, very good thing, which...
First play, Blitz 9.
I honestly don't know if the circus that is Colorado football will ever truly leave them, because this is a little bit more on the subtle.
Well, when their coach
Colorado
moves on to the Cowboys.
Well, and speaking of that, they did
hire
have
Ryan Walters.
Their special teams coach just all of a sudden isn't there anymore. And all of a sudden you found out, oh, yeah, he's not with the program. He resigned.
You get fired by email because, I've had that one before.
Oh.
Shout out radio stories.
I don't know. It's just
Hashtag radio stories.
There's just, things happening in Boulder, Colorado, which, I'm all here for it. I got a front row seat to it, and just trying to consume as much popcorn along the way till September 7th, which would be a lot of fun.
Gives us a reason to keep pooping on Prime.
Pooping on Prime. That sounds like a good podcast.
Yeah.
Pooping on Prime.
Sponsored by Metamucil. That's how you sell. The Cauldron of Crap.
Yeah,
that we talked about. That could be
crap.
Presented by Metamucil.
There was another good one. I can't remember that Gary brought up. By the way, if you're wondering, if you're late to the week and you're like, oh, where the heck's Gary? We're game week. He is off this week. He's back next week for Nebraska and the rest of college football game week. This week is dedicated to the Aer Lingus Classic and to the SMU Mustangs.
This is onside kick week.
Yes, this is the And at some point, I hope we can do this. We did it. We did it
Ceremonial.
for a moment yesterday, but to reminisce the week that was the Aer Lingus Classic and leading up to kickoff to that one,
Would
which
you believe
was
my first
a lot
day
of fun.
here was the Monday after said Aer Lingus?
Oh God,
What a hell of a first day.
that would be.
Now, remember, I was
Yeah.
working with Gary and Damon, so they were both quite fussy about the game, and I was like, I don't blame them.
Well, and I believe they both did Big Red overreaction.
They just
for
continued
that
it into
one,
Monday.
too. You will have a lot of things that leading up to that week. There was this. I mean, I have no problem calling it a hatchet piece on the notorious Nebraska football team that was making their way to Dublin by a local reporter of the Dublin area, which was very interesting at the time. Then there was, of course,
local Dublin reporter, not
Yes.
a local Omaha.
no, this was a local Dublin
Ye
reporter
old Sam McKeon.
that was bringing up was bringing up like old Nebraska stuff from like the 90s.
Stephen O'Sipple.
And it was, there was that. There was rumors of coaches hanging out, getting the Guinness tour, but maybe spending some more time than what normal people do at the
Has nothing on the Boulevard tour.
There's just a lot of fun stories. So I know our colleague and friend who's going to join us on Friday, voice of the Florida State Seminoles, Jeff Colhane. I'm sure he's experiencing all that Dublin has to offer as the
Some
Florida
U2.
State fans, and I'm sure Georgia Tech.
Some cranberries.
All seven of them,
Didn't
seven
Lizzie?
Georgia Tech fans are enjoying that. But we do get college football this
Did you
week.
say 7?
Seven
About
Georgia Tech
accurate.
fans.
Okay.
Yeah. We get college football this weekend.
There we go. That's
We
how
get
do this.
some preseason football, which gets underway tomorrow, final week of preseason football.
Though I don't know about you, but we're all over preseason. Nobody's playing, and
Nope.
you don't want anyone to get hurt. Just get to the damn season already.
Preseason
Doesn't matter, 'cause
Preseason's
it's
been
just-
it's just been even a bigger disappointment. And
It's-
preseason was always, but now, I mean, at least you always had the third preseason game where it was the dress rehearsal,
It's
and you would
kinda-
typically get the starters that would play for at least a half.
Yeah.
Now it's
Or 3/4.
Not really.
I usually say preseason's fun for me because it's stress-free football and you just get to see the nobodies play for a roster spot. I can't really agree with my statement a few weeks ago after seeing the Packers perform.
What was
in
your
Denver.
statement a few weeks ago?
Well, my it was just what I said. That
Oh, okay.
preseason football is fun because you don't have to stress about really anything.
You
get
hear
to
that,
see
Dad? Are you
faces.
listening?
Are you stressed right now?
A little bit on the kicking game because the Packers
This
got Greg
building will do it
Joseph
to you.
out of Minnesota just to have some veteran leadership in that group, and he's missing kicks in practice. Anders Carlson's going into his second season for the Packers.
Does Chris
And
Jackie
then-
still have a leg? He could still do it. He was a hell of a
might as
kicker.
well. But yeah, they have a third kicker fighting for that starting kicker job for Green Bay, and no one seemed to be.
This is
consistent
life
for-
without Mason Crosby.
Yeah, life without Mason Crosby.
20 years. It's tough.
Well, good luck to you.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
I hope it's not solved at all. And
I
hope,
wish you luck. My team's in the toilet.
I hope that Jordan Love has to kick and pulls a hammy. No, I don't.
Might-
I don't
might as
wish
well see-
injury on anyone, but
he's
hey,
got a strong arm. Might as well see if he has a
You're
strong
nicer
leg.
than I am. You should hear some of the things I say when the Chiefs are playing.
The Hard Knocks, by the way,
Pants on or off?
it's good. It was very good. It was actually something. The last two episodes just been like, which I'm okay with. I've said this very many times about Chicago Bears Hard Knocks. If it's all like pomp and circumstance, they're putting on a show, then that makes me think, oh gosh, because I've seen how those seasons have gone typically for those teams that do that in Hard Knocks.
Lipstick on a pig.
2010 Jets. But Bears need to be businesslike. They need to be all about getting better. I said yesterday, and people are saying that I'm downplaying this new added hype because of Caleb Williams and the limited sample size against guys that may not even make a 53-man roster, how he's playing well. Hey, I'm excited and happy to see what he can do, but I'm not going to start making those predictions until I see him against an actual NFL team. But I said 8-9, 9-8. Probably
So did I.
doesn't get you
Not about the
into
Bears.
the playoffs. It could, but I'm still convinced that there are going to be two teams out of the North, and they will not be Chicago or Minnesota. Now, if all hell breaks loose in the rest of the divisions and there is a third team, okay, Chicago could be in play if they can get to that ninth win. I feel like they are a 9-8 team, maybe an 8-9, but they're going to make some December football games exciting and at least be a part of the conversation. And I'm fine with that. I'm totally fine with that. This is a growth year to where then next year that window should open. So that's where I'm at. This is not
It's a low bar, but it's realistic.
Well, this is, I'm trying to
I
live
can get
in
behind
that
that.
world. I'm trying to live in that world. I'm not going to get so down and be like, yeah, they'll still be a 3-win team. No, I think there's a lot of good things about them, but that division all of a sudden has become pretty salty and some depth. Thank you, Detroit. The NFC
Eventually,
overall,
Lucy's going to actually hold the ball for Charlie Brown.
Like the NFC overall is going to be
Laces out.
Interesting. I mean, when you look at the NFC West, that's a Niners division. We know. I'm intrigued by the Seahawks and the Rams. I'm not saying I fully buy into that. The NFC South,
It's still garbage. Okay,
not great.
Someone's got to get out of that division.
Yeah. And then you got the NFC East, which could you get 3 out of there? Could you get a Cowboys,
no,
Eagles, maybe the Giants?
No.
Yeah, I have no faith.
So I don't know.
At least I have college football.
There's going to be, I think there's going to be an opportunity for teams like Chicago. I don't think Minnesota. A lot of people are saying, Minnesota will be lucky to win like 4 or 5. I don't buy that. I think Minnesota
7-10
could be right behind Chicago as well. But anywho,
O'Connell will get the most out of what very little he has.
Yeah,
and that's not an insult.
He's an interesting one. Like it's
who was it we had on the other day?
Well, Brian Christopherson
likes
is very much into Minnesota's coach.
Yeah, I don't know what Schaaf is because I can't remember, but whatever he says, I'll follow that lead too.
I think
those are my 2 windows into the Vikings.
But yeah, I think Kevin O'Connell
he's no Jerry Burns.
It depends on who you talk to. I feel like there are varying opinions on him, which I understand. The good thing about the thing that I liked about Hard Knocks last night was the Matthew Judon, who Chicago was in play for. And I want to give an apology. This happened during the crossover to Austin yesterday, because he said, no, the Bears also offered Atlanta a 3rd-round pick. I said, no, they didn't, because I was bagging on Ryan Pace because nobody negotiates against himself better than Ryan Pace.
Did you hurt the little fellow's feelings?
No. I said he was wrong, and he actually was
right. He had
right.
some great ideas. Chasing Reese, he needs to trademark that.
Well, he was right about what the Bears did offer. They did match the 3rd-round pick like the Atlanta Falcons. I was hearing they wouldn't go any higher than a 6th. No, what they wouldn't do is they would not pay him the guarantees that he wanted because of the injury he was coming off of last year. There was no guarantee that they could sign him or they could extend him once they got him. So this is the difference between Ryan Poles and Ryan Pace. Ryan Pace is like, oh, hello. Okay. What do you need? Okay. We'll make sure that happens. Did you miss the most of last season with a very tough injury? Well, okay. You'll be fine. We're just going to go ahead and put our confidence in that. We'll pay you. And Ryan Pace did. He just did it with a different outfit, the Atlanta Falcons. Ryan Poles like, nope. You want $100 million? Nope. How much guaranteed? Yeah, nope. We like you. We don't like you that much.
Well, we guarantee some gear and a jersey.
To hear him pass was interesting. And I thought it was an interesting part of when you see these things in any type of documentaries or docuseries.
This is what gives you hope, though.
Well, yeah, you're spending wisely. You're evaluating talent, but you also have a certain price you'll go. Now, Matthew Judon might come out and be a stud
for a year, 2.
But I think understanding that you have a goal in mind, a number in mind, and again, coming off of an injury like that, there's no guarantees. And that's exactly what this guy wanted. Matthew Judon wanted a pretty large guarantee. So
don't we all?
He's now Atlanta's project. I'm not going to say problem because maybe he won't be a problem, but
positive Nick.
I'm just saying it was interesting to see when the deal doesn't happen and seeing that through the front office and a little bit more of the communication on that. I honestly think the Bears feel very good about moving on from Matthew Judon. That's why I think that was part of Hard Knocks. If that was a bidder and they're really upset and they feel like, damn, that one's going to get to me, they wouldn't have shown it. The fact that saw the light of day and you got a lot of detail on it, I think they're pretty happy. And I think they wanted to show their fans, hey, y'all don't want us to recklessly spend. And when we are, make sure they're guys that can impact our organization. as opposed to guys that could, but the injury part of it makes us a little nervous. Well, we will only go so far. It seemed very responsible, which I'm not used to as a Chicago Bears fan. I'm not used to responsible spending or just overall front office decision-making when it comes to the money and the injury elements of personnel evaluation. So good on you, Ryan Poles. Now get him to the playoffs. That's what you missed. Everything else, Caleb Williams was sporting a pretty interesting man purse in one of the meetings. Guy's different. He's
Jim McMahon didn't have a purse. He had beer, lots of beer.
Caleb Williams is
Jim Harbaugh.
I believe
lots
is
of whole milk.
I think he's a Renaissance man. If I had to,
would Coach
put him in a
Ditka
box.
consider Caleb Williams a Grabowski? Probably not. If
no.
you're a Bears, you got to be a Grabowski. That's what he said. The Rams were a Smith. The Bears are a Grabowski.
You know what though? If they get out of the gate at 4-0 and Caleb's balling, then
he is though.
Then he will be. He can have as many man purses as he wants and wear
Get a
loafers with no
mustache.
socks as much as he wants.
How
he
can
can
you
do all
do
that.
Feet sweat. I've noticed that. Dress shoes with no socks, and I'm not judging the look.
Well, Jimmy,
I
there's
get
a thing
that.
called no-shows.
Well, I mean,
probably wearing socks. You just
I would
can't see
hope
them.
so.
Yeah,
That's
just
what
can't
I
see
would
'em.
wear.
He's got really good no-shows.
Of course, I don't really wear
those
dress
ankle
shoes
socks
anymore. Yeah.
See, I say all
that's what
this
I have on today.
as I'm saying all this. Mr. Joe Colbert is a big Packer fan. I'm just trying to see if there's any part of him that's nervous.
He's just letting you roll because
about
he
this
knows he's
breakdown.
good.
I give it a couple years for the Bears. Just got to see what Matt Eberflus does with all the talent he's got on his team.
Flus?
Got a great defense. I'm not. I wouldn't be too concerned on their defense.
I really like their.
Bears
See,
fan.
thank you,
They
Joe.
do have some dudes.
A lot of people want to look at, which they did add some offensive weapons. Now I think you've got
A man crush
a
officially
trio.
on Rome.
Rome is good. You've got Keenan Allen, DJ Moore's a stud. I actually like Cole Kmet, and
Yes.
especially not having to have the burden of, hey, you got to be a bigger playmaker than you really
I mean,
are.
that's 4 dudes right there. That's not bad.
And people forget they got DeAndre Swift now too. So I like Khalil Herbert.
The Chiefs can keep Taylor.
So they've got dudes, and if their offensive line is healthy, that's a good thing. But that's a big if. I'm glad, Joe, you brought up their defense, though, because everybody kind of glosses over the defense. When they talk about their defense, they talk about guys like Montez Sweat, which he's good.
They got him mid-season last year, and they were really struggling in that category. And then once the season progressed for the Bears, they got better. And
They finished 7th.
Yeah, they finished 7th.
This is a defense that names that people probably have heard of but don't really talk about that much. I'll start with Jack Sanborn. We all remember him as a Big Ten Wisconsin linebacker. Guys, now there's a Grabowski. There's a Chicago guy. There's a dude that plays that with that edge right there too. But
I like that.
I'm a huge Jaquan Brisker fan. He's a stud. Kyler Gordon is a stud. I love Jalen Johnson.
Man, I haven't heard of most of these guys, and I know football.
Tremaine Edmonds and TJ Edwards. A lot
That
of people
actually makes me
obviously know
happy.
those guys. But yeah, I mean, from their linebacking core, good members of the secondary. I would have loved if they could have gotten a Judon type player opposite of Montez Sweat. But hey,
you're not leveraging the farm.
Could be Jimmy's guy, Austin Booker from Kansas, as they
He's my
got
guy.
in the. Well, he's a Kansas guy.
Oh, it's true.
Played for KU.
Fellow alum.
And they got him like late.
Shout out Alumni Association.
Yeah, he was a 5th rounder, but he's having a good camp. So,
Well, yeah.
enough
He
Bears
went
talk.
to a football school. Of course he did.
Yeah. I know everybody signed up for Wednesday morning Bears talk. But you
What
asked
I've
about
learned-
Hard Knocks,
all-
and this is where I went with
all
it.
you people, there are a lot of Bears fans here. One of my brother-in-laws is a Bears fan. So this is if you talk Bears, Packers, or Vikings here, I've learned people are pretty happy, and obviously Chiefs too, because the NFL has arranged for them to win the next 39 Super Bowls in a row. It's just already been. It's the script is in. It's already preordained.
The NFC North's well represented in Omaha.
Mhm.
It
You
is.
see them everywhere.
It is.
Great NFC North town.
You'll-
We even have the climate to go with it.
Well, and the only team that was kind of missing was Detroit, but then Ndamukong Suh got drafted by them, and then all of a sudden you had a lot of Nebraska fans that weren't maybe big NFL fans, like, you know what, I'll root for Ndamukong Suh.
Not only Ndamukong Suh, Amir Abdullah was
there, yep.
on the Lions.
Keegan on the stream, Joey is not a high school intern. We are going to be answering questions to him for years to come very soon.
Keegan. Is Joey? So we were having this conversation yesterday, Joey.
You heard of the wheel in the sky? He's the one who turns the wheel. He spins the wheel in the
Because
sky.
you were kind of rocking a little bit of a stash not that long ago.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're clean shaven.
Yeah. I've been trying something out lately.
Oh,
That's
wow.
cool.
My wife's going to have
Taking-
thoughts later.
Well,
taking a break.
you're doing the whole rebrand.
Yeah.
You're going
Mhm.
from Joey to Joe. I get it. Maybe a little facial hair reinforces the Joe.
I'm not
But
good at that.
Wow, come on.
That's true. Nick kind of has that.
I have to because I have no hair on the top of my head.
Happer has pretty good beard too.
I would say this about, and I said this yesterday too, but now that you're here, I said if someone were to tell me that Joey was 20, I'd buy it. If someone were to tell me Joey is 35, I'd buy it.
This is great.
You-
You're an amoeba.
You would be the carnival barker who guesses age at the carnival's worst nightmare because he'd have no idea. You'd have zero idea.
I've encountered that not only here but just anywhere I
Yeah,
go.
you
can do
were
it
questioned if you could drink beer at a meeting.
That was not the first time I was asked by our boss.
You will be the guy though who's probably carded well into his 30s.
Yes.
Like they have to, not just because we have to card, but they literally like.
Well, it's reasonable to do that. You got to make sure.
But you will end up succeeding her after she leads us to several bowl victories and decides,
Yes.
you know what, I'm ready to try the NFL. We're going to turn this over to Joey because he's paid his dues and he's a program guy. We're going to keep that
I don't know
corporate knowledge.
Joey's presentation, especially you hear him on Traffic, you hear him, on producing various shows. Joey's vocal skill
He's not
set,
3 yards in a cloud of dust.
Yeah, your skill set is not, I think, conducive to making upstairs decisions. I think you need to be impacting the airwaves.
Yeah, I know, Keegan.
Well,
We
I
know
make
you're
a
having
difference
fun.
on the roads.
Yeah, I'm just poking ribs. Poking ribs. I don't think I've ever heard that.
I have.
I know
I've
it's
heard of it.
I'm just
Then again, I love ribs.
just busting nuts, busting balls, things like that.
These are all podcast names.
Just poking ribs,
Talking barbecue.
poking ribs.
Welcome to
poking
Poking
ribs
Ribs.
would be a good smoking barbecue too.
Yeah.
A lot of things that we have, a little grab bag of topics today as
Piece
we
of
get
grab ass.
closer and closer to Nebraska UTEP, which again is 10 days away. Mentioned Nebraska's got their single-digit guys. Also, even though it has nothing to do with single digits, there is a uniform number decision of note that I know this
Controversy.
is we need football. Actually, you know what?
Big number overreaction.
It was a very good gesture by one member of the Nebraska football team. Ed Foley spoke yesterday. Ed Foley talked special teams. Ed Foley talked kicking game. Ed Foley still concerns me. We'll get into that as well. A little conversation that took place on Sportsmanlike Conduct yesterday. And also, Tom Chattel had something written about this in the Omaha World Herald about the college football playoff schedule and how it does impact. Now, Gary and I have touched on this a few times of what that could mean for future non-conference slates for Nebraska going forward. We'll dive into that because Tom, in writing this, also brought up what I think is a very good and I don't think discussed as much point when it comes to the college football playoff. I mentioned this to you this morning before I even left my house because I was wondering while I got on Twitter last night why the NFL Sunday Ticket was trending. Whoa.
Oh, I
now
just
I know.
saw your email. Yeah.
Now I know. Oh,
Yeah,
no.
take
See,
out a
now,
loan.
now you're just looking.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll tell you about what it might cost you if you are a certain subscriber
2 arms and a leg
to the NFL Sunday Ticket. Also, well, I'm just going to smile about Major League Baseball last night.
No, go ahead and gloat because you did
I will.
cancel your Guardians, and
I will.
last night they were not canceled.
I will. Don't worry about that. And the Padres and the Angels helped me as well. This was a conversation I want to get into Monday, and it just never surfaced to where we could get into it. But today we will do it because even though we do have, just college football right around the corner, I wouldn't call this a list season, but I call this a Big Ten topic or
You're getting
opinion
your
season.
summer topics out of the way. Before
Yeah,
we
where
can't talk to 'em
we
anymore.
can get into what Big Ten team will make the biggest jump in 2024 and which one will have the biggest fall. Because I got some ideas, and I think there's a couple of candidates for both.
You got 41 teams to choose from.
That is true. Mentioned earlier that Deion Sanders had a member of his coaching staff. All of a sudden, there's like, hey, I haven't seen this guy around. And he was at another school during their media day. But yet no one really ever said, is he still there until earlier this week? It's just what goes on. Like, oh, yeah, you know what? I haven't seen so-and-so in a while.
It's a lot like radio.
Is he
kids.
still a coach? Oh, glad you asked. Actually, he's not. Any more questions? And maybe one of the, I know.
Did they move him into the basement?
No,
He just left.
He just left.
Took his stapler.
And he was already hanging out at other college football teams' practices, not
Nice.
Connor Stallion style either. And I think Josh and Connor were talking about this. The Oklahoma State football helmet that has a QR code that will allow you to directly donate to their NIL.
Or Uber in case they get drunk and need to drive. Because apparently
Might be a
that's
separate alternate
that's a
uniform thing. I don't know.
there.
So, yeah, lots to get to. Also, our lineup, which is always powered by the Roofery's at John Higgins Weather Guard.
Shout out,
We
Vicky.
continue to do our friend or foe segment. We'll be talking UCLA, the UCLA game, which, man, I'm telling you, we're making our way right down that schedule, because if you're thinking of the UCLA game, it is a home game. That will be taking place on the 2nd of November. So we'll be talking SC on Friday. Next week, we wrap it all up with Wisconsin and Iowa. But we'll talk to James Williams with the LA Daily News, who covers the UCLA football beat. In fact, last time I talked to James was when it was officially announced that UCLA was coming to the Big Ten. So now that we know UCLA is in LA, thank you to their new head coach. We will get the latest on the Bruins, of what they look like under a new head football coach, a new defensive coordinator as well, and a new conference. That's coming your way at 9. And then, of course, getting back into the Husker football conversation with Brandon Vogel of Counter Read. You can always join the conversation on the 42 Degree The Source hotline, 402-951-1620. You can chime in on anything you really want to talk about on a Wednesday as we get just so close to college football. If you need anything that you need to purge before we really get into this, if there are still some summer topics that you really need to purge and get it out of your system so we can just clear the way for football thoughts.
If you haven't decided on your walk-up music, now's the time to let us know.
All that works. And you can hit us up on the Equitable Bank inbox where they take banking personally. Doug and the folks, you know what? Bottom line, they're just going to answer the phone on the first ring.
Just call Doug to say good morning.
Need I say more? Email the show. He is Jimmy at 1620thezone.com. I am Handley at 1620thezone.com. Or the J-Tech Construction Zone Twitter feed at Nick Handley 1620, at Mystery Jimmy whatever.
You can tweet at the show Sharp and Handley
at Sharp and Handley,
because that's what I have open. So even if you tweet it at me, because I don't tweet that much, because I don't have anything worth a crap to say anyway.
You're not a tweeter?
Well, I have it. It's such a cesspool. But and I only have it open during the show, and I have the Sharp and Handley account open, so that's what I read.
We also, I don't let Joey get in on this too. Is it Jay Colbert at nrgmedia.com?
Yes, it is.
All right, Jay Colbert at nrgmedia.com.
Go find my Twitter account at Joey Warchola.
How the hell do you spell that?
Warchola.
Maybe we'll just send out we'll send out a random tweet that tags Joey, then people can just feed off of that. How about that?
That's usually the case. It's hard to find my last name.
I know. I was very confused when that magical day that you and I became Facebook friends. Like, oh, that's your name. I think that's what it is. I think that would be it. Otherwise, how would I have known? So is this an alias?
That is a part of my name. My full name is Joseph Raymond Warchola Colbert. Warchola is my mother's maiden last name.
Respect. I got you.
So got to include that in the name.
No, it's good. It makes you more mysterious, just like your age.
I like this.
Joey works in mysterious ways.
Mm-hmm. As you two once famously sang.
Is he comparing himself to the Lord? You just said Joey works in mysterious ways. The only other person I say that about is the Lord.
But not Jamal.
Well, that guy worked in mysterious ways too.
I liked him.
Did people use that when Jamal Lord was making some questionable decisions on the football field?
Let me text Gary and ask him.
The Lord works in mysterious ways. Jamal Lord.
The cliches would have written themselves. Lord parts the Red Sea. Yes, I know it was Moses, but that's all these things that they could have used. I don't remember, though.
By the way, you can also, I always forget to say this when we're talking about, you can hit us up on the Equitable Bank inbox or the J-Tech Construction Zone Twitter feed or the 42 Degree The Source hotline. Hit us up on this. Get in the stream. Join our friends Rick and Keegan and Josh the Pirate, our regulars, our friends. They're like they're our family. By the way, Josh the Pirate says good morning to not just you and me, but also to Joey.
Yeah,
he went with Joey. He's going with he's not going with Joe.
I'll admit I do keep an eye on the Pirates more now because of Josh. I mean, I always.
No disrespect to you, Josh, but I pay more attention to them because of Paul Skeens.
That's okay. That counts.
Yeah,
I used to pay attention to them because of Doug Drabeck back in the day. And Bonds and Bonilla, they were good too.
Yeah, I was going to say there was a couple other guys back in the day.
I celebrated the entire '91 Pirates lineup.
The old piping hats with the yellow around the top. That was my favorite thing. Pirates just had
the We Are Family uniforms and hats. Yeah.
What college baseball team is doing that?
First of all, no college team is as cool as the Pirates in the 70s were.
It's got to be a black and gold team. I think Iowa was doing something like that. I think they were doing some pirate looking uniforms. Which, if you got the black and yellow, more power to you. I think even Lincoln Southeast has tried that at one point.
Oh yeah, I know that. Yeah, I know
the high school.
I knew someone went there.
So yeah. When we come back, the big news yesterday. It was big. It's actually, there is significance. I know. Leave it to us to get worked up. No, just us in Nebraska who either are fans or cover the team. And it's not always the same. Just because you cover them doesn't mean you're a fan. We used to anyway, get worked up over the black shirt discussion. We get worked up over alternate uniform discussion. What Matt Rule has now introduced is a alternative to something to react to that has nothing to do with black shirts. It's more significant to talk now about single digits because what the single digit signifies both on and off the field.
Less stitching.
Does it mean anything to you guys that 90% of the single digit jerseys that will be represented in 2024 are on the defensive side? I think it might, and I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. We'll get into that and plenty more as we continue. Glad you're with us here on a Wednesday. It's Mornings with Sharp and Handley. It's Nick, it's Jimmy, and it's Joey. 1620 The Zone. Hey, tomorrow we are going to be kicking off Red Out Week.
Mine went blank. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right.
Continue.
I even gave you the pregnant pause there. That's all right. We'll get to it. Red Out Week, which of course is next week, but we are going to kick things off tomorrow with our Fan Day broadcast tomorrow, right here on Mornings with Sharp and Handley and Jimmy and Joey and the whole gang, all of our friends and
anybody that works here.
Essentially, what we're doing with this kickoff day, because I mean, not only are we kicking off the college football season this weekend, but we will be. I mean, think about it. 1 week from tomorrow, if you didn't know, we're going to be out at Oscar's Pizza, starting with the Connor Happer Show and on Sports Like Conduct, but we will also have our round table to kick off the season as well. Now, if you remember
at a
this
rectangular
last week,
table,
I know. Maybe we'll actually have a round table.
Just
We'll
bring
have
a
good
round
wings.
table over.
have
I
delicious
mean, we could.
wings.
I might. I'll be just stuffing my face with wings.
They're really
But
damn good.
I remember when we had this last year,
I do too.
and it was a game that night. Mm-hmm.
There's-
And we were
there'll
coming off
also
of
be a game
volleyball
that
day in
night.
Nebraska. There will be a game that night that I know a lot of Nebraska fans will be paying attention to, having to do with an FCS team and a future opponent. Also, I know your alma mater will be playing that night as well. But
We're
yes,
very much in debt to them.
that will be next Thursday. So tomorrow
Literal
we're going to
debt.
kind of kick things off and really going to encourage you. We know you all got, everybody wants to do the season prediction thing. Whether you hear someone say it and you disagree, agree, or you're indifferent to it. I know y'all got your predictions on the season. I know y'all got your things that you're excited about and that you are concerned about. So tomorrow is for you, whether you want to hit us up on the 42-degree hotline, 402-951-1620, or you want to get in on the stream with all of our family in the stream.
They got memories.
Exactly. Everybody has the things that they're excited about this year, maybe a concern about this year. Everybody has their takes from, I think we're going to be 10-2 and 11-1 to hell. I don't even know if we're going to make a bowl game, but tomorrow is the day. Just let her rip. It is our Fan Day broadcast tomorrow. So it is all about you tomorrow. So just make sure if you've wanted to call the show or tweet at us with some definitive predictions, tomorrow is the day.
It's just like holding in that gas on that first date and you finally drop her off and you've been holding it for 45 minutes. You just let her rip.
That is a real thing.
We've all been there.
We all been there.
And it's like a deflating balloon.
Or-
You get in your car and it just goes.
Or you're sitting in a booth at Old Chicago in Wichita and you're like, this is a hard bench. This could have an echo that
Yep.
has a, on the Richter scale.
There have been many times where on a first date, when they have to maybe use the restroom or something, you're like, thank God. And then you lift up one cheek.
You got a minute and 22 seconds to just get it all
See,
out. But be careful
Yeah, the problem
because
is something maybe lingers, they come back. So I guess if
the hell did you order?
If we're in a position to give advice today,
Kids,
if you ever do
your way to
run
school.
into that where you're like, you know what, I can't wait till the date is over, which I have done before, and it's a glorious feeling when you do let out the air.
Plus, of course, this would be the time she invites you to her place of all the times.
Just don't pick enchilada night.
That's a no-go for a date.
Well, funny story with
sauerkraut. Don't do that either.
The first date of me and now my wife, when we were first dating, we went and ate at a establishment. I don't know, maybe kind of a little bit of the nervous gut.
That's why you got to be
First
bland
date
on that
gut.
first date. Just simple.
I didn't have the
children's
first
menu?
date thing. I had which she's like, oh, let's we have a drink at her apartment.
Okay.
I really had to go to the bathroom. I pulled off the whole turning on the faucet because she was in a very small apartment downtown.
Of course. That's how it goes.
I thought I was being clever. I was trying to cough when I would have like certain noises coming out.
those damn
Just
parliaments.
trying to mask
I need to quit.
sounds. But the problem was if I courtesy flushed, then she was going to know exactly what was going on. So I only had one flush. Everything went down fine. But when I got out of the bathroom, and maybe this is why we are now married today, she didn't let me get away with it. Right away, she just laughed and she said, do you really think I didn't know what you were doing in there? And I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't, but then she said, I don't care.
It was cocaine.
Okay.
Is that okay?
So, that's a real thing though. It's maybe one of the great relief.
You should have put some
relief
baby
moments.
powder under your nose just to kind of
Where the hell is I going to get baby powder?
In the bathroom, there's something. There's got to be something powdery.
Make sure you bring some spray with you just in
Do
case.
people have baby powder just hanging around in their bathroom?
They used to. I don't know if they do anymore.
I mean, I should say people who don't have like children.
You need to put it in some areas, I'm sure.
You know what, Jimmy? That thought never crossed my mind, but I guess that could have been.
But it worked out. She
could-
married you
could have been a
anyway, so it's
diversion.
not like you needed. Yeah,
But man, there have been other times.
that's a good story.
where you get the old, like you get in the car afterwards, just like, you're
It's like you feel like Ken Griffey hitting a home run in the Kingdom.
But if you're the date is still going on and you decide like when they leave to go to like the bathroom or something and you do that, and if there's something lingering around, do not even let her suspect you. As soon as she sits down, just say, my gosh, I think our server came by and crop dusted us. So, I mean, you immediately shift the blame. So you're like, oh my God, thank God you're back. We might have to move. Somebody just did that. Yet
Someone
the whole
ordered the
time,
poo-poo platter. if
You,
You know
were
what I mean.
always the culprit. It may work, it may not. I don't know, but it's always it's a thing.
Never mind that
yes.
my friends used to call me Chevron when we were kids. Never understood it.
There's really no natural transition to this next topic, so we'll just do our best.
I appreciated the story. I know no little something extra. And
Yeah, I feel like we've all
now I
we've
get
all
why she
done that at
questioned
some
you
point.
the other day when you were teaching.
that I gave up too easy.
Yeah, it all makes sense now.
How does that have anything to do with what I did on our first date? I don't know.
Because she's not afraid to call anything out.
Well, that's true.
That's the Chicago in her.
I suppose. Yeah, she wasn't gonna like maybe sometime later in life. She'd be like, you know what? By the way, on our first date, I knew what you were doing. No, she let it rip right then and there, just like I did.
Pun intended.
Exactly. All right. So the single digit jerseys are out.
Only 10 guys got them.
Only 10 guys, because you probably want, wait, what's single digit? Well, 0 counts. Mm-hmm.
And we love 0.
The usual suspects, and I say usual suspects, the guys that had the single digits from a year ago and are still with the football team. So there is a 7 up for grabs, as we know. I know.
He's right.
It is.
Harry Dunn moments are never good.
Oh yeah.
That's the most relatable part of any movie.
I didn't have explosive situation like Harry Dunn did, but yes, the whole, oh my God, what am I going to do now? Yeah, that was a real thing. So Nash is still sporting 0. Isaac Gifford still sporting number 2. John Bullock still sporting number 5. Deshawn Singleton, number 8. And Ty Robinson, number 9. So there are some holes there. You're thinking, what about number 1, who Billy Kemp used to have?
I remember him.
We've got 3. We've got 4 up for grabs. We've got 6 up for grabs. So number 3 will be none other than Marquise Buford Jr. Congratulations to him. Number 4 is Jamal Banks, which that was a pretty hot prediction. I think a lot of people thought Jamal Banks most likely gets a single digits. I know there was a part of, could Dylan Raiola get a single digit? He wore number 1 when he was in high school.
But that's not his brand.
It's not. And number 1 is going to be donned by Jamari Butler, which another guy that a lot of people felt would be a single digit. Tommy Hill getting one at number 6. Malcolm Hartzog at number 7. So your single digit 2024 Huskers: Nash Hutmacher, Jamari Butler, Isaac Gifford, Marquise Buford, Jamal Banks, John Bullock, Tommy Hill, Malcolm Hartzog, Deshawn Singleton, and Ty Robinson.
It's a good list.
Now, if we were to go back a year ago,
Nash and Ty book in that?
Yes.
I think that's kind of cool.
And by the way, if you
I
saw
don't
the
know if that was
picture
intentional.
yesterday, holy hell. Those dudes bookending that entire group. Like, Malcolm Hartzog's not a huge dude to begin with, but having those 2 guys next to everyone, like even Tommy Hill, who I think is a pretty stout guy, they just look so tiny in comparison.
It looks like they're standing next to Andre the Giant in the poster of Princess Bride, or some of the pictures that they took.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. So if you remember last year, single-digit guys, I mentioned the ones that are coming back. So Nash was a single-digit guy. Isaac was a single-digit guy. John Bullock, Deshawn Singleton, and Ty Robinson. So Jeff Sims was single-digit guy number 7. That didn't go great. Luke Reimer was fantastic at number 4. Nick Henrich, when he was on the field, battled a lot of injuries, but Nick Henrich at number 3. And then, of course, Billy Kemp at number 1. Is anybody else? I found myself doing this yesterday because the number 7 jersey for Nebraska football has had a lot of success in its illustrious history. We could look at quarterbacks on back-to-back moments.
Regular guy Eric, who we talked about.
And Scott Frost. Scott Frost, as much as we don't like to celebrate his coaching stint, we definitely like to celebrate his career as a player.
He did win a championship.
Yes, he did. Malcolm Hartzog Jr. will be rocking a number 7. And maybe this is a hot take or not. I think I don't want to say the curse of the number 7 jersey is necessarily that, but that was a tough look with the number 7, especially at the quarterback position a year ago. Now we're going to see it proudly sponsored.
Hey, you might be ahead of your time there with that one.
Proudly rocked by I think a pretty important player this year in Malcolm Hartzog, making that jump from what was a very good freshman year. We're very excited about him, to a season last year where he was kind of all over the map, but he was also playing some corner and some defensive back, safety, and I think everybody would agree. And he's versatile. Well, he's even said safety's probably his most important and most strong position.
But he didn't say, I won't play corner.
Yeah, he's a team guy.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to remember.
I'm not joking. That's a good thing.
Previous number 7s before Jeff Sims were Marcus Washington.
Remember him?
Had it. And, obviously he didn't wear it last year, but he was good until he got injured.
Most people are.
You look at Taman Lynham, Latrell Neville, who never really did anything.
It's related to Latrell Sprewell?
No, but did you actually know he is related to Aaron Neville?
Whoa, we were just talking about him yesterday. I'm not kidding.
I was very excited when they recruited him, knowing that maybe Aaron Neville would be at games, maybe he would even sing the national anthem.
Mm-hmm. Take the over.
Yeah.
They couldn't get Mandy Moore to sing it back in the day when she was hanging around Husker football. She sang the songs,
with Andy
right?
Roddick? Are you talking about when wasn't she hooked up with Andy Roddick?
I think everyone was back then. It's a different
with
time.
Andy Roddick or Mandy Moore?
All of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Gas was cheap.
We can't forget Luke McCaffrey rocked number 7.
Do not. I liked him.
As much as Luke McCaffrey turned out to be kind of a disappointment, because again, he was playing a position that he just wasn't going to be great at. He was wearing number 7. He gave us more ups than the Jeff Sims downs, I'd like to say. DiCaprio Boodle wore number 7. So it hasn't been all bad. So I don't want to make it sound like Malcolm Hartzog's breaking this long streak or should be breaking this long streak. I think last year was just a big bummer of seeing someone wear number 7.
You could just stop there.
Yeah.
Last year was a big bummer. I was like, yeah.
It was just
that's the takeaway here.
So my biggest takeaway right now with this single digits. First of all, again, if you look at the picture and you look at the guys that bookend the group, even
they're the chaperones.
Deshaun Singleton, not a small dude. He's 6'3". Ty Robinson towers over him. Ty Robinson just looks massive. But having Malcolm Hartzog that close to Ty Robinson was really, really fun. Mm-hmm. And then having Jamari Butler, who is a big dude. You got Nash, Jamari Butler, Isaac Gifford, who somehow looks small. But then there's Marquise Buford. At one point, I'd say, who is that?
These guys aren't small.
No, they're not.
That's the thing. They're
just
Corey
some large
Campbell did a hell of a
dudes.
job with them.
Some very large dudes. So Jamal Banks is the only offensive player amongst the group. So this is a well-represented 9 out of 10 defensive players getting single-digit jerseys.
You see it one way, and I see it another.
Well, some people might be like, uh-oh. Offense is so far behind. Actually, this is kind of exciting to me.
They're like the 2000 Ravens before they switched to Dilfer.
Well, you remember that Ethan Piper was given a option. Well, he couldn't, but was a honorary single-digit guy. You knew that he would turn it down because he had to play.
Given an option to come into work.
Well, so I was wondering maybe Ben Scott or Bryce Benhart would be a a honorary single-digit guy. But the thing about it, like Jamal Banks, who from day one has done everything both on and off the field of the standard that they talk about so much. So I think that from the offensive representation to the defensive representation, it tells me two things. This defense has, if we're going to say the standard, and you've seen it, I mean, every one of those guys on the defensive side that is rocking a single-digit jersey, you've seen their presence, you've heard about their presence, you've watched it with your own eyes, and then if you're watching Chasing 3, you've seen them be a big part of not only the impact on the field, but the culture off the field,
which is important. I mean,
this is a big thing.
We've talked about that since even before Rule was hired, about culture. You got to get the culture's been broken, and this is part of it. So yeah, this is all great. You want to see that. Right. I know it's put out because it's fluff for the fans and what, but that doesn't mean it's not too far away from being accurate.
Right.
Good culture. People want to be there. You don't have a lot of defections. People really believe in this process and what they're doing, which is why I say if they're healthy, they're going to have a much better season this year, obviously because it's year 2 under Matt Rule, but don't discount how culture can change anything. Culture can turn a 5-7 team into a 7-5 team. Now, I'm not saying, but you want to be 10-2, but my point is that can win you a couple extra games.
My question yesterday was,
you go for 8-4 to 10-2 just off culture alone.
If they are successful based on, everybody has maybe a definition, whether it's a number of wins or what have you. It's got to be at least a certain number of wins.
Well, let's say player-led program.
Will it be more because, at least this year, will it be more because of culture than it will because they just have better dudes on the field than they've had in a long time? I slant it a little bit more towards culture because I do think their roster is improved, and I think it's more developed in a short time with this coaching staff than it has been with previous coaching staffs. I don't think it was just staff, but staffs. But
with the strength program too.
Absolutely. And that's part of it. It's a big part of it, actually. But I would say we threw it around so many times, that word culture and how important it was. But it comes down, as far as I'm concerned, maybe you guys look at it differently. When we always talk about the adults in the room and having guys that concentrate on the football matters that are going to be important, that are going to lead to winning games. That's what this coaching staff is about. And they have, and I think this was a good thing for Matt Rule to come into, is you had a core group of upperclassmen that they simply just want to win.
Just want to win a game.
They're tired of, yes.
Go to one bowl game, so try and win it.
You can develop,
build a foundation.
Those guys physically, the talent. I mean, if you're a Division I Power 4 football player, there's going to be some type of talent. It's finding that, being able to validate that talent. So that is part
and bring it out of them.
Yes.
They always talk about Corcoran.
Absolutely.
Trying to bring it out of him.
And we'll see. I mean, that's a big part of this. But the whole thing with what I think the first year of success under Matt Rule would look like is probably going to start with the culture that they have in place and those upperclassmen that not only bought into it, but are just freaking tired of losing football games. I mean, I know that sounds so Captain Obvious, but I think we try to overthink the culture thing so much. It's as simple as a staff that concentrates on the football matters and upperclassmen that have had enough.
I think it was Sam that said this the other day about, and he's absolutely right. There is a group of kids, Andy said this too, about just kids in general that go to Nebraska, and talking about how there is several groups of students, and in this case, players that have never been to a bowl game at Nebraska. Now, imagine if you go back in time 25, 30 years and tell someone that, they'd be like, have they eliminated all bowls altogether? How do we not make a bowl? You'd never even think for a second that it's gotten to that point. So that's why a lot of these people, especially the ones that are back for their last year, they just one time wear their uniform in a bowl game with a bowl patch and hopefully win said bowl game and know that they laid the foundation for what they're building there. And this is why we were excited about year 1 to see what happens when an adult's in the room. But year 2 to see that improvement. And then everyone always compares 1 and 2 the years with Matt Rule. And I think that's fair. I know they're different situations, but the point is, it's not the situations. It's the fact that, like you were saying, getting them in the program, getting that culture established, getting your strength and conditioning program established. That's what leads to that second-year jump. And then once you really got it going, along with recruiting, because he's always been a dynamite recruiter, and you see it already with who's going to be the quarterback. Then you get to year 3, and then it really jumps. But think of it, if you're one of these players, especially the ones that are from Nebraska, you never imagine when you're a kid, man, going to Nebraska one day and never going to a bowl. It just doesn't make any sense. Even just a college football fan, it sounds weird to say. And that's why this year is so important, because to finally get over that hump, and then if you have success in the game and you finish on a good note, and that springboard you, and Gary said this too, year 3, and I agree 100%.
Everything's about 25.
Because then he's saying, what you guys both said, if they're not ranked to start next season, there's a problem.
Yep.
And yeah, I agree. Doesn't mean they have to be number 1, just be there.
Right.
Be there to start.
We're going to take a quick break, but we'll continue this discussion because there's also
and rule the days right. Let's get
also
this week out of the way.
There's a jersey thing that I know we're continuing to talk about, but it has nothing to do with single digits. But I thought it was interesting as well. Think about 2 guys in particular that got here in the spring, and 2 guys that we thought, man, they are going to be a big part of what Nebraska does going forward. One on each side of the football. And then you hear the head coach and then their respective coordinator talk about not necessarily holding up their end of the bargain when it comes to the, quote, standard. And then one guy who is represented in the single digits that from day one was Jamal Banks. From day one has embraced what they want to do in the community, but also you watch Jamal Banks amongst those wide receivers, you're like, yeah, he's going to be a big part of this
tremendous
offense.
Buy-in.
This guy is going to impact them in a significant way, both on and off the field. So that's that representation of a single digit. 2 other guys that I talk about that now seem like, okay, they get it. And this is what I'm getting at when Deshawn Thompson, linebacker, played under Tony White at Syracuse. And then also Mike Mazuka, who,
great name,
another dude who you heard from yesterday, talked absolutely about that standard. They said, you've been to 2 previous Division I stops, Big 12, SEC, what's different about Nebraska? And immediately he talked about the standard. What did Matt Rule have the criticism about both of those guys is not necessarily living up to the standard yet, or having to find out what our standard is and how they can adapt to that. Basically being challenged. And now, is it any wonder that both of those guys are trending upward? We know Mazuka is going to start on the offensive line. It hasn't been announced, but he will be. And the guy seems to fully embrace it. Deshawn Thompson also getting to that level too. But what I'm getting at here is when it comes to, this is why I think culture in the first year of success that Matt Rule has, and hopefully it's this year, you're going to look at not having a mixed message to your team of guys, a Tony White guy, a Matt Rule guy, because Matt Rule's known Mazuka for a very long time, but not playing favorites when it comes to what they're going to hold the entire team, the 120 and beyond, accountable for.
Well, they want to get it to
the consistency, the aligned thought of this is how we all have to go at it to get better and to win football games. And if you're not doing that, I don't care who you are, you're not going to get the reps. You're not going to get the glowing reviews. You're not going to get the pats on the back. You're not going to be a part of this.
You talk about Rule guys or Tony White guys. I think what they're establishing here is none of that. They're Nebraska guys. That's the standard there.
Yeah, that's what
and
they.
That's everyone preaching and saying the same message. And from what I've heard, that's what it is with the coaching staff. Everybody pulls in the same direction. This is great. This is what you want. We talk about things that we've talked about on the show, me, you, and Gary. I see this with another school that I see often. When everyone is pulling in the same direction, it's amazing the things and the strides that you can take, which is why I think they will win 8 games this year. Because I do, if they're healthy, I always say if healthy, and there's a reason because we're seeing some of that already, but if they're healthy, because everybody's pulling in the same direction, everyone's gotten just a little bit better, you're going to end up taking those big strides. And it's amazing how much different things will be around here once that happens. Gary said this last year, business is better in town. People are in a better mood. Everybody is. You guys have said, "Oh, they're going to be obnoxious." I don't think so, and we can talk about that later. I don't think in that first year, first year back, I don't think they're going to be obnoxious.
I won't say
there's going to be a lot of gratitude, just happiness.
Obnoxious has a negative connotation. I think it's going to be obnoxious in a fun way.
Yeah, it's
going to be
I think it's just going to be fun.
It's going to be a lot of pent up. I've been waiting to actually celebrate and be proud of what I'm seeing on the field for once.
See, I don't see that as obnoxious. I just see like happiness.
Obnoxious can
Think
be a good
think
thing.
of our people in the stream, how happy they're going to waited so long. If they can, for once, since I've been here a couple years, which is not that long, is seeing the tone of people either calling into the show, interacting with the show, whether in the streams or the tweets, now to see that completely flip and be different, I look forward to it. I embrace it if it all comes together.
There was another Jersey observation yesterday that we'll get to.
He gets his own segment.
I know. This is just like, come on, guys. Are we really into Jersey
Who was it I
conversation?
said?
But we are.
This week, rule of the day. This week really needs to this week needs to get over with. Let's get this week out of the way. That's what he said. He's right.
Also, there is a part of so if we're going to again be fair on this whole thing and the excitement that we have about the culture, there still is a part of this season and early on, whether we can call it a position battle or a situation, however you want to label this thing, I'm still very, very concerned about. And hearing a guy speak yesterday did not do me any favors of trying to increase my confidence in this situation that we'll get into as well.
By the way, Nick, if they beat Colorado, especially if they blow them out, everyone can be as obnoxious as humanly possible.
Oh, they should be at least.
They should be. It should
direct
be
all your attention to all of the Colorado message boards too. We are coming back in hour number 2 here on Mornings with Sharp and Handley, Jimmy and Joey. 1620 Zone.
Every time I think the station died, and that's just how it's recorded. This week's zone deal is to the Woodcliff Restaurant. Voted Omaha's best outdoor patio. It's perfect for a romantic dinner for two or a family dinner. Enjoy all of Woodcliff's delicious food with a perfect view of Woodcliff Lake. Don't miss Thursday's weekly special burger or Friday's fish special. With this week's deal, get two $25 gift vouchers, a $50 value for just $25. On sale this Friday, August 23rd at 9 a.m. Get all the details at 1620thezone.com. And now we go to the 1620 The Zone Weather Center for Not Weather with Joey Colbert.
Thank you, Jimmy. It's now time for the Colbert Sports Report. News from the tennis world. Top-ranked Italian sensation Jake Sinner avoids a suspension by the International Tennis Integrity Agency after testing positive twice for an anabolic steroid at Indian Wells back in March. Sinner is now looking to move forward from the incident and will do everything to comply with the ITIA's anti-doping program. Sinner recently won the Cincinnati Open and is one of the favorites to win the U.S. Open, which starts at the end of the month. Little details from this whole ordeal. Tests were taken 8 days apart, and he was provisionally suspended after the second positive test, but won an appeal. He did lose, however, $325,400 points from Indian Wells. ITIA ruled this as a result of contamination from a support team member using the steroid to treat a small wound. The World Anti-Doping Agency and Italy's anti-doping body can appeal the decision. Moving towards college football. Nick mentioned it earlier with Oklahoma State. The Cowboys announced yesterday their football helmets will feature QR codes. In an ESPN article by Jake Sprotter, he explains that these codes will link to a donation page for the school's NIL fund. The codes are about 1.5 square inches. While they are barely visible from the stands, the school says fans watching the television broadcast can capture them with their phones and can help raise their NIL value.
Is this similar to, guys, have you noticed on
what about when you're drunk?
Certain police cars? And I think I've seen them in Douglas County and Sarpy County, but if you go to other states too, that the police cars have QR codes on the back of them. I thought we weren't supposed to be using our handheld devices while on the road, yet they have QR codes that encourage us to use our phones and to find something out. I don't even know what the QR code is that are on law enforcement cars, but I've always found that to be
I don't know if I've seen those in Omaha, but I also have not been looking for them. So if anybody else that lives here would
I'm pretty sure
educate us.
I'm pretty sure I have seen the QR codes.
Shout out to our law enforcement, though. They're big fans of our station.
Well, they're great. And I don't think it was their decision to like, hey, let's slap a QR code on our squad car. But I have noticed that, and I always thought to myself,
it also goes to 1890.
If I were to ever get pulled over for using my handheld phone, could I say, well, I wasn't texting.
I was donating.
I was trying to scan the QR code.
Thought we were donating to the cause.
I think if you catch like an Ollie Gordon in motion with his helmet and you are able to scan the QR code, that you should
do you have to pause
get some type of cool thing on top of your NIL donation.
If I'm watching football and I'm hammered, I can't hold my phone
maybe
steady.
The cool thing is you automatically get a 5-star. Maybe you get a 5-star recruit then. I don't know.
Think of how different the program would be if you could. Now you can actually QR code them some money. You could send money to Alvin Mack. You didn't have to give it under the table.
Envelope into the lapel of the sport coat.
You don't have to give them a Texas State Fighting Armadillo sports jacket that's 100% cashmere.
Way to hold on to that pigskin. Here's a little something. Keep up the good work.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Meanwhile, over in Colorado, Nick, Jimmy, you mentioned it earlier. Colorado loses an assistant coach, Deion Sanders, and the not-so-primetime Buffs loses a key special teams guy. What a surprise. Colorado announced the departure of Trevor Riley, who served as a quality control analyst for the special teams. Colorado is now without a leader for that position group, with only 8 days until their season opener against the North Dakota State Fighting Bison.
Go Bison.
Jimmy, I don't know how hopeful you are with the Cowboys' negotiations with CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott.
I'm not hopeful with the Cowboys in general. But
well, in an ESPN article by Todd Archer, Jerry Jones says the two sides are having, in quotes, promising talks in terms of coming up with a contract extension. He is optimistic, however, but he believes the sides will eventually come together with an agreement. When asked about Dak, Jones says they're still in discussion. We'll see, I guess. And finally, the Storm Chasers just completed their first road match.
Football.
The Storm Chasers completed their first road match in the 6-game series at Buffalo, defeating the Bison 7-3. They resumed the action today at noon. And finally,
Nice.
Union Omaha has a home-friendly match tonight at 6:30 against Bellevue University before their upcoming showdown against the Richmond Kickers this Saturday at 7.
Oh, that is friendly. Playing a local college team.
Should be friendly.
It's very friendly of them.
I think an Apollo Creed,
friendly.
It's a friendly.
Apollo Creed and Ivan Drago was an exhibition, though. Look how that turned out.
That was supposed to be friendly.
There's nothing friendly about it. Although technically Apollo started it because he was running his mouth at the press conference.
Big shouts to Kevin on the Equitable Bank inbox. By
Yes,
the way,
those
of the
hats,
lid.
by the way.
Very cool.
Good Lord.
The Omaha South with the old the Packer and the piping, very similar to the not that Packer, but very similar to the Pirates piping as well. It was just red and white. That's very, very cool. And then he was kind enough to send us an old photo of the Omaha South. By the way,
look older back then. All these guys look like they were
the
30 with
pinstripe
kids.
uniforms. Pinstripe uniforms look good. Look very similar to when I was at Millard South.
Look at the socks.
And we had the white with red pinstripe uniforms as well. Pinstripes just aren't as cool as they used to be. Now you got to go with the really loud men's league slow pitch softball uniforms. Hey, let's go all black, or let's go all royal blue, all red, including the pants. You know what? The pinstripes are just nice little subtle. At one point, maybe considered to be loud. Now, no one does the pinstripes other than the Yankees. It's very, very disappointing.
The Rockies still have pinstripes.
Yeah, I mean, there's still Major League Baseball teams. It's always going to be a part of their thing. But
Not
as far
everyone
as
are good.
the high school, I'd be curious with the 13,000 select teams that are
What about our
in
club team?
Omaha. I'm curious if they have a pinstripe uniform.
What's our show team here? The Nebraska Prospects?
Yep.
We're in bed with them.
Oh, yeah, they got pinstripes. They got like 9 uniforms.
Yeah, shout out the Prospects. Love their hats.
Yeah, their hat game, their logo game is very solid.
I proudly wear their hats.
It is really good. Appreciate it, Joey. I'm sorry, Joe.
Sure thing, Nicholas.
I like that you have the Colbert Sports Report.
I like
You've
it.
branded it.
That was my little.
Look at you.
That was my little college radio show.
Look at you.
Got to revive
Love it.
Yeah.
So to put a bow on the jersey number conversation, we gave you the single digit jerseys. And again, if you haven't seen the picture, it's
Go look at the picture.
The biggest takeaways are that Marquise Buford, who is, in his size, is a strong dude, and Malcolm Hartzog, they look really tiny because of the large men that are around them.
Tiny baby Huskers?
This was, I don't know if it was a huge question, if it really is even something that was weighing on anyone's mind. By the way, Malachi Coleman was not an active participant in last Friday's practice from observers. He was back at practice yesterday, and there were images of him making a catch, making a catch, wearing the number 11.
Ooh, big Major Applewhite fan.
Wearing 11, which means, you can't have 2 offensive players wearing number 15, which Malachi wore the year before.
Not anymore.
It is now Dylan's number 15. Good on you, Malachi. Being a team player right there, saying, you know what, kid?
Dylan's like, I looked up to Jeff Hostetler my whole life. All I want to do is wear number 15. Because when you see 15, you think of Jeff Hostetler.
Well, and then I'm trying to think of some of the most prominent number 11s.
I got Major Applewhite. That's about it.
Was Tony Eason 11?
Yes, he was.
Yep. See, I thought that
he was a ballyhooed quarterback.
Yep. Tony Eason. If you can start naming random New York Jet quarterbacks.
We usually do.
Ken
Richard Todd, Ken O'Brien, Brownie Nagel.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, Tony Eason.
Yeah, Mark Sanchez. Yeah, we got every got every era covered. Babe Perilli.
So if anybody was losing sleep over what number Dylan would be, 15 is now his for the taking because Malachi stepped aside and said, "You have it, kid.
Yeah.
I'll go with number 11."
Yeah.
So I thought that was a feel good moment right there. Everybody's, you know what? Everybody loves everybody.
And that's what the takeaway here. That in fact, that's the ticket slogan. There's Nebraska football. Everybody loves everybody.
I agree.
Play all you need is love underneath.
We can get into this here in the next segment, but maybe it's because anytime he spoke last year, he was like our best friend in Ed Foley.
Danny White, shame on me. I know that was another 11. Thank you, Joseph. could hear Dad right now. How could you forget the first Cowboys quarterback you knew?
I'm trying to think if the Bears ever had a good 11. I'm pretty sure they didn't. There is something to be said about listening to Ed Foley talk now. By the way, he's a lot more to the point. He doesn't waste time with chit chat anymore. Although he did mention something about the Braves Phillies series and how it was a big series before he got going.
Talking about the 93 NLCS?
No, series going on right now.
Oh.
But this is and we've talked about this before. This is a very important year for Edward.
Yeah.
The special teams part of the Nebraska football program moving forward is an area of concern. And some of it has to do with maybe injuries. Some of it has to do with just inconsistencies.
It has to help you, not hurt you. It can't hurt you.
Yes.
That's just all simple. No excuses. It has to be better.
Right.
And we love it.
To essentially look at the trajectory of this season, there are a couple of things that still concern me. And listening to this yesterday, I'll set it up when we come back of whether you are intrigued by a certain someone that is putting his foot on the football or more concerned. Because the return game, I think there's some definitive answers. At least they have a pretty good idea of what's going on. The whole kicking part of this is, maybe I'm reading too much into it, is nowhere near decided and has a little bit to do with injury. But when it comes to confidence level of areas of this football team, this would be way low on my chart. We'll get to that coming up after this here on 1620 The Zone.
So many number 11s that have been given to us in the box. Shame on us for forgetting such great people.
Wade Wilson was the best one.
Yeah, rest in peace, Wade. Yeah. Super Bowl MVP, Mark Rippon. And of course, there's so many others, but let's not forget Drew Bledsoe. Also, let's not forget that 1620 The Zone and Liberty First Credit Union Arena proudly presents Ralston Days, sponsored by Liberty First Credit Union and all of our stations. Every single station that is in here that has a microphone, that has stuff playing on it right now, they're sponsoring this. It's August 30th through September 2nd, Labor Day weekend, Liberty First Credit Union parking lot, free admissions, carnival rides, music, food trucks. Will there be live animals? I don't know, but find out at 1620 The Zone and Liberty First Credit Union Arena, Ralston Days, August 30th to September 2nd.
Man, Joseph in the stream pulling a Scott Norwood, too.
Scott Norwood, yes. Good job, guys. Thank you.
Ooh.
Just keep them coming.
Scott.
Shame on us.
Norwood.
Hal McRae before he started throwing telephones. Epic rant.
I noticed nobody mentioned a Chicago Bear at number 11 because I don't think you get
Bill
exists.
Sims?
Terry, by the way, great question he poses on the Equitable Bank inbox. Said, hi, guys. The real question is how much bank did Coleman make for his number 15? Yes, you know, they do that in the NFL, too. It's like, all right, if you want this number bad enough, you're going to have to buy it. And we know that
College kids
Dylan's NIL is probably a little bit more lucrative than your average Bear or Husker. So, yeah, there might have been a little cash exchanged, maybe a meal or two. I don't know.
Malachi could take him out for a meal too.
He's a Hy-Vee NIL guy. I noticed when I went into my local Hy-Vee grocery store that Malachi, Thomas Fedoni, and God, I have to remember the volleyball players too.
So we don't need Caitlin Clark anymore. We got them. All right.
Well, and Jack Mitchell, who was filling in for Connor last week, had mentioned at the Lincoln Hy-Vee that they actually have the cardboard cutouts. Now, this wasn't a cardboard cutout at my Hy-Vee. It just was a poster with the Nebraska NIL Hy-Vee representatives, and one Thomas Fedoni and Malachi Coleman were on that.
All right.
So there you go.
Yeah.
But it is a good question.
Shout out Hy-Vee.
It is a good question. If there's one guy that you say, anymore. If you want this number bad enough, how much are you willing to pay? And I'm assuming that maybe there was. Maybe there wasn't. Maybe it was like, hey, you know what? You know, sometimes you also do the old, it's more important to you than it is to me. Mm-hmm. So you go ahead and take it.
Or the coach is saying, you don't have a choice. Give him your number.
Ooh, that would be quite the power play.
He wouldn't do that. He's too cool.
Speaking of coaches, Ed Foley speaking yesterday.
Ed.
And I will, I'm nervous, boys. I am nervous about this element because I know Sam mentioned the first several games hopefully don't come down to a field goal where you could maybe have enough of the offensive and defensive success that essentially you wouldn't be in a close game. And we'll talk to Brandon Vogel about this, about if you're looking at the 12-game schedule for Nebraska, the odds and what the metrics would tell you as far as where Nebraska would be in those matchups when it comes to a close game. But I'm not, and I continue to not be very optimistic when it comes to the kicking game. Now, again, a big part of that has to do with Tristan Alvano coming back from the hamstring the groin / lower abdominal surgery, that he is 90% full go.
That sounds awful, by the way.
And then there's been a lot of conversation about John Hull and how he has been kicking the ball, which, okay, that's great. Glad that there's somebody who's taken advantage of the reps that he's getting while Alvano has been not able to get all of those reps. Kickoff, and Ed Foley mentioned this yesterday too, that they're not really worried about kickoff because even Brian Buschini has done place kicking as far as the kickoff duties for Nebraska before. This is part of Nebraska's history that has not gone well, and that's the close games. Speaking of Colorado, when they were up 17-0 at halftime in Boulder in 2019, and they were in essentially kicking hell. You had one guy who couldn't kick anymore because he injured himself in golf. You had another guy.
Golf?
Yeah.
How ironic, considering who he was playing for.
Yeah. Also, you had another kicker who was just inconsistent. And then he ended up getting injured to the point that you had your punter attempting a field goal in overtime to try to keep that game going and missed it wildly. I'm not ready to dismiss the situation going on. Tristan Alvano has been inconsistent. There is belief amongst the coaching staff, and I think that the team in general, that he's going to figure this thing out and he's going to get better. Well, you had a setback, obviously, physically. Okay, so there's no guaranteeing as far as how he can rev things up. Again, the whole 90% to me was interesting because essentially what he meant is he's not getting 90% of the reps. It's more of the being able to let it go at 100%. Not quite there yet, but close. Thinks he'll be ready for UTEP, but they don't know. In the meantime, John Hull is getting reps and has looked...
Not Hull like the former Jets kicker?
H-O-H-L. Hull. And he has been kicking the ball, quote, very well.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Which is good.
That's fine.
Hey, that's good.
I'd rather hear that than not been doing very good.
You have to go for two.
We've got Heinrich Harburg now kicking. But this is the issue. Okay, so if you think about last season, Alvano was 9 for 15 on field goals. And if you're looking at the whole kickoff thing, which I'm not as fixated on, 14 of 32 kickoffs went for touchbacks a year ago for Tristan Alvano.
Mm-hmm.
You also do have a true freshman in Nico Antominelli, who has not said, they just haven't said a lot about him, but he said he's doing fine. And then you have Brian Buschini, who spoke yesterday, talked about a lot of his offseason work being done with the mental part of the game. Brian Buschini, I swear, has been playing since Bo was coaching. He's been around for a while.
In fact, he was the host for Rex Burkhead on his recruiting visit.
Yeah, he might have been.
He convinced him to go to school at Nebraska.
The inconsistencies with that part of the punting, and then thinking about if a game comes down to Nebraska able to ice a game or to, being down 2 or even to keep a game going.
Way to go,
tie
Nick.
it
You
up.
got me nervous now.
Well, it just hasn't been an area of strength.
Football, it starts soon. Now I'm like, oh, man.
And I the whole...
they're going to go in 12 now.
Well, the whole Tristan is 90% good to go. Again, knowing what the injury is...
I haven't been 90% good to go in years.
If someone has the injury that Tristan had, it's... When it comes to kicking, that's a big part of getting past that injury. For a guy who's already been a little bit inconsistent when it comes to field goal kicking, maybe John Hull has been good and is a viable option if
competition's good, though.
Tristan isn't ready. But are we ready to just go off of what Ed Foley is saying? Because I don't know about you guys, this is an important year for Ed, and I'll give him credit. He was very, very blunt about how special teams last year in the kicking game was bad, and that's on him.
That's probably the head coach saying that needs to be better.
Yes,
period.
He's taken ownership on that, and that's fine. It's one thing to take ownership and say, yeah, that was bad, and it's on me. Okay, cool. Let's make it better. How is it going to get better? Well, when you have the guy that you're hoping is going to take that big jump this year, like a Tristan Alvano, and he had the setback, which is not his fault, it just leaves that position, in my opinion, very murky. And quite frankly, I think of the first 7-game stretch, I think about that big September 7th under the lights game. If it comes down to that part of Nebraska's game,
started this by talking about Scott.
Are we confident? Because I'll tell you right now, I'm not. I am not confident at all. It worries me. I think we're just saying, yeah, they'll figure it out.
You hear that balloon deflating? That's my mood.
From the kickoff standpoint, not nearly as worried. It's more about field goal kicking. Because it just, and this goes before Tristan Alvano. You got to go all the way back to Connor Culp in the COVID year when he was the all Big Ten kicker. But he was kicking into empty stadiums. We all saw what happened in 2021 when people came back into stadiums. The guy could not hit anything.
Oh, I thought you were making a KU joke.
It's been so inconsistent and at times just flat out bad that when you're like, all right, lining up for a field goal, okay, we're at least going to get 3 out of this. Like
That's
we
been
used to
consistent
think.
then?
We used to think, okay, at the very least, they get stoned at, say, the 20-yard line.
Alex Henry, we're inside the 50.
3.
We're good.
Yeah.
Brett Maher.
Yes.
We were so used to those two guys nailing the
Drew
kicks.
Brown, you know, and
Chris Brown.
Pat Smith.
there was, I mean, it was one of those things you didn't even think about. You're like, you know what? I got to go to the bathroom. They'll make it. I'll come back and there'll be 3 points added on to
First
Nebraska's
of all, how
score.
did we only get a field goal? How did we not get a touchdown?
Yeah.
That's what
Now
it used to
it's
be.
like,
they held us.
Now it's like, oh God, we didn't get in the end zone. I know it's only a 32-yarder, but
Could we
That
at least
position
get
group's
inside?
going to win or lose some games for you. It's
I agree.
crucial.
Joey, I agree.
Let's get inside of 20 yards. and
I'm
okay.
as confident and optimistic as I am about so many things about this team and culture and improvement on certain positions. A combination of the inconsistency from Tristan Alvano and the injury and trying to just put the confidence and the benefit of the doubt to Ed Foley that John Hull is indeed doing what he's supposed to be doing and can be a reliable weapon if he needs to come in. You can look at it 2 different ways. One, once Tristan Alvano is 100% healthy, they're going to let him go full on this thing. If he is shaky early on, that I do think it'd be a short lease. They're like, hey, let's at least give Hull an opportunity. So you can look at it as, okay, they at least have a good option, that they're not going to be forced to just, well, we got to ride with this because we have no other option. Okay, so that gives you some comfort. But what if John Hull is the same way? I mean, it's one thing to be doing this in practice. It's one thing to be doing this in scrimmages. But when there are 80,000 fans packed in a high leverage moment in the game, guys, I'm not confident. And I won't be until I'm proven otherwise.
As the resident ray of sunshine of the show, you always look at
we
for
gotta,
positivity.
We got to be
know
fair
how,
on
You
this.
know how you avoid this altogether? You score touchdowns. That's how you avoid this.
But that's not always going to be the case.
But it should be. If you score touchdowns every time.
Well, in a perfect world, yes.
If you get 3 yards every play, it's a first down.
But, okay, this is something that we've talked about a lot, though, is when you get to a certain
Go for a
area
fourth down,
of the other side of the 50, and you're looking at a 3rd and manageable, or you're looking at a 4th and 2, and you're right around that 43 to 45-yard field goal range.
I don't want to kick anyone.
What are you doing?
I don't ever want to kick.
We're seeing gambles taken a lot lately
Yeah.
on that side of the field.
Well, guys, this impacts play calling, too, of
Yeah.
what you want to do
We
in
have
certain
4
situations.
downs to make this.
Yeah.
It's
and
3rd and 6. It's really like 3rd and we got 2 plays to make 6.
the amount of points that have been left on the field in the last 4 years for this football program and the amount of close games that Nebraska has lost, guys, it all correlates. And so this is not the ideal situation special teams wise, especially with just the field goal and extra point kicking that you necessarily want in a season that has so much other potential. So as I'm listening to Ed Foley,
You're not wrong, Nick, but I'm sad now.
I didn't expect him to all of a sudden just change my opinion of that situation, but he didn't do anything to help it. And it's obviously a wait and see, because at this point, I'll say this, no matter how many times Ed Foley or anybody in special teams, Matt Rule himself, talk about this, when they line up for their first field goal, whether it's a 30-yarder or a 45-yarder, there is nothing automatic in my mind about that. There isn't. And maybe it doesn't hurt you against UTEP. Maybe you're in a position where it doesn't hurt you against UTEP. But against Colorado, that could be big. Against Rutgers, against Illinois, you never know.
And at least for that UTEP game, you get opportunities to see how the kickers do before you get into a big game situation. If you have a big lead on UTEP, you have those opportunities there to get your kickers out there and get the reps needed.
Nick has them winning 34-10, so
yeah,
that would mean 2 field goals.
I guess I got to stick
or
with
a
that.
missed extra
Or
point
missed-
based
I
on
was
this segment.
wondering.
Yeah, could be a missed extra point. Yeah, I guess I have to stick with that. I did. I just threw that out. Didn't even think about it. But I'm that's where I'm at. Maybe I'm being way too doom and gloom on this thing. I don't have great feelings.
I ruined Nick. That's
about
what it
this.
is. I ruined him.
I'm just being honest.
I know.
Just
It's my
being
fault.
honest about this.
He's all bright-eyed, optimistic when he walked in here a couple years ago, and now he's been around me, and they're going 0-12.
Did you hear me talk about the Bears last year? Yeah, there was no bright eye optimistic
That's
stuff.
true.
This is the part about when we talk about Nebraska football and the reason things can go well, because I think there's a lot of those. I think this is also an area that does concern me because I expect Nebraska to be in some close games, that I'm hoping that close games where they win the turnover battle can be the difference. Or not only do they win the turnover battle, but in a close game, they're able to get points when points are presented to them.
You're not leaving them on the field. In all
Right.
seriousness, like
Right.
every time you're getting points.
I don't know. It's not a great feeling right now. I wouldn't, and that's the thing. I would not even have this conversation and be as definitive about it, or not even definitive, but just as concerned about it if Nebraska offensively was so far elevated. Maybe they do take a big jump this year. Okay, that'd be great, because then you got the defense and the offense working hand in hand where you can mask maybe inconsistencies when it comes to your kicking game. That would be the goal. But I don't think Nebraska's in that position quite yet to where, like you said, Jimmy, you've got to have those points on the field. You're not in a position right now as a football program to leave points on the field. So this is a big part of Nebraska question marks that I have circled of, I'll say this. Left tackle depth is up there. It's not my number one. This is my number one. This has really etched itself. And what I heard yesterday, I'm not getting closer to, okay.
Damn, Joey, we're going to put some cartoons on in the studio. I was in such a good mood before the segment.
Well, do you guys, I mean, are you guys?
I'm going to take back my prediction.
Do you guys
They're
think
going
it's
1-11. They're going to beat you and I.
Do you guys think it's fine?
I think it's fine. It's the number one concern if you're a Husker fan.
Yes.
I'm concerned as a Packers fan with our kicking game, so I kind of know that feeling.
As a Cowboys fan, I'm concerned
now.
with our football people. All of them.
But for Nebraska, if they started a game tomorrow, what would your confidence level be in them having to make field goals that matter?
I would say 7.5.
That confident?
I think with this not being as a highly pressured game against UTEP, if we're talking about UTEP.
Okay,
tomorrow,
all right. Let's just we'll throw out UTEP. All right, let's just jump to Colorado. Let's go. Their most competitive team early on.
It's tied at 3 in the fourth quarter after a shootout.
I would put it at a 4.
That's exactly where I am too.
You're just unsure what's going to happen, and with how things have been lately with Colorado, you don't want to lose in that particular fashion, as you have been losing in the previous seasons.
There's the mental and physical
Our
part.
poor streamers are
seem
probably
to collide.
Gee, I was excited. Thanks. It's
Well, we got to be real.
single digits.
We got to be real.
Yeah.
Just
Dylan
that's
Sawyer, number 15.
the thing about this team
New quarterback.
in taking the step forward is winning close games.
At least we have
Big part of
volleyball.
that is winning the turnover battle. Huge part of that. But another part of that I don't think gets enough run on it is being able to get the points when points are presented. And if you're a college football kicker in a Power 4 level, you've got to be reliable at 45 in. I would say 47 in it, but we'll go 45 in. Hasn't been a strength in Nebraska in a while. Again, going back to the COVID year with Connor Culp. That's the last time I can say, okay. Now, field goal attempt for 38 yards. I can go to the bathroom. I'll come back 3 points later. That's been success.
Actually, it's a pro move when you're at a game. You want to go before the media timeout. For the Red Hat,
Exactly.
You want to hit up that trough.
It's very, very true. Coming back after this, don't forget 9 o'clock hour, we're going to do our friend or foe segment. We take a look at UCLA with James Williams. Also, Brandon Vogel of Counter Read will join us as we continue here on 1620 The Zone. Hey, you know what? It is time. We're going to get into this whole NFL Sunday ticket thing. But if you're looking to get a break on the price, well, FanDuel has got your back. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you now through September 22nd. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel any time. Go to FanDuel.com, use the promo code ZONE. That's FanDuel.com/zone to download America's #1 sportsbook. 21 plus and present in Iowa. Full price of NFL Sunday ticket will be automatically charged seasonally after free trial. No refunds. Terms, restrictions, and embargoes apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-BETS-OFF. Quick segment here before we get into the 8 o'clock hour, even though we're technically there in the 8 o'clock hour, 3 minutes past the hour. Currently, it is 66 degrees out there under cloudy skies. John writes in the Equitable Bank inbox.
70s, 80s, 90s, and today.
John says, what do you mean Nebraska will not score a touchdown instead of a field goal at every opportunity?
That's
Have you
over.
forgotten about Dylan Raiola? Okay. Well played.
He has.
Well played.
He's got the Huskers going 0-12. I had him 12-0 until that segment. Had him playing the Chiefs for the championship and then having it rigged against them.
Let's all just stay. Let's all stay grounded. Let's just all remember that there are still things that need to be accomplished before we can start crowning this team as a college football playoff contender. Not that maybe saying you or
please
you
turn
or
on your
else
sarcasm meter before the message board geniuses say that we said they're going to the playoff.
By the way, some preseason accolades. The all freshman preseason team. You know who QB1 is, or QB in general is? Dylan Raiola. And y'all know JD Pickell
Friend
from On 3.
Good man.
He's got Nebraska in his top 25 at
He
number
loves
24.
Nebraska. He loves him some Matt
A
Rule.
lot of people do.
That's all right.
Lots of people do. And that's just
Except in Charlotte, North Carolina,
I'm hoping
for some weird reason.
yeah.
Get over it. He wasn't there that long.
That ain't ever gonna happen. Maybe it will. I think at some point.
George Seifert went 1-15.
At some point they will. Coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. Good write-up by Tom Chattel on the college football playoff impacting future non-conference schedules for Nebraska. But he mentioned something that I think he is absolutely 100% spot on, that I don't know how much it will dilute the overall national champion, but I think it is an interesting thing with this new college football playoff schedule, the expanded college football playoff. We'll get into a little bit of that. And as you heard me talking about FanDuel and the NFL Sunday Ticket, holy hell, it was trending last night, the NFL Sunday Ticket, and I found out
For the wrong
why.
reasons?
Yeah. I'll just say you want to jump on that FanDuel, even for a couple of weeks of free FanDuel.
Just give me the Red Zone channel.
Because the Sunday Ticket...
Give me single team coverage.
Got a bit pricier. This is where you got to start learning how to do some NFL Sunday Ticket or just your own teams games hacks. Because
your Bears hack, I should get one for Dallas.
Yep, that's it. I think they're kind of onto it, but we've been able to stay ahead of it too. But we'll tell you what.
I did Kazan LimeWire for years. The only thing that suffered was my laptop.
If you have Apple TV, what it will cost you to watch out-of-market games for the Sunday Ticket. All that. And how about them Yankees? Now, that'll be quick. We're coming back after this. Hour 3, it's Mornings with Sharp and Handley, Jimmy, Nick, and Joey here on 1620 The Zone. Halftime brought to you by Omaha Whiskey Fest 2024, the largest celebration of whiskey in the region. Coming your way downtown Omaha on September 28th. And be listening perhaps this hour, this segment, for your chance to win a pair of tickets
You wanna
to
go?
Omaha Whiskey Fest, which we will continue here on a Whiskey Wednesday.
Where's the whiskey? We should have whiskey every Wednesday. My
I've had a
idea is
lot
never
of caffeine today, so I'm not
We
sure
have
how
one
that
beer
would
Friday.
go.
Why not have whiskey Wednesday?
I've tried Two Blunt Thursday. We've tried Whiskey Wednesday, MILF Monday, nothing. Thought about something for Tuesday, but you can't say that word on the air. It's one of the 7 words.
Eh.
Had lots of ideas. All of them crapped on. The cauldron of crap.
We did have a good Whiskey Wednesday
We
with
had
our
a great Whiskey Wednesday.
our good folks from the Omaha Whiskey Fest. So
Delicious.
it is a Whiskey Wednesday. I would say if you're looking for a kickoff, bourbon would be a good way to start for a 2:30 game.
Oh, I thought you were talking about today.
Might I recommend a Woodford Reserve Double Oaked?
So before you go to
one of
work
my
today,
favorites. One of my
so
favorites.
if you get to the parking lot, you're no longer driving. Take a couple shots, walk on in. They ask you, say, hey, good morning. Say what's good about it.
Good stuff from Tom Chattel on the college football playoff impacting future scheduling for Nebraska. And I do encourage you. He brings up some really good points about that. I think we would probably, after this year, agree that Nebraska's home and home with Tennessee in 26 and 27 is probably in jeopardy.
Once
This
again,
is sad. I wanted to go to
Oh,
that.
I did too. This is the thing that I am all for, an expanded college football playoff, because I like playoff football. And as long as it can be quality playoff football, and the fact that we're
And
going
he's
to
not
see,
getting it in the NFL, so
well, that's
neither
very
am
true.
I. So
In the opening rounds being on campus sites too, I just think is an absolute banger. I love it. I think it's great. What we will see though is teams, especially in the Big Ten, have 9 conference games. SEC, I think, eventually gets there as well. That a lot of these marquee non-conference Power 4 matchups, for the most part, will go away. And
just gonna get a bunch of directionals now. Cupcake City.
max group
Action.
5s. I'm most
So Nebraska's trading in Tennessee for Lindenwood.
Well, I'm mostly there with Gary. He doesn't want anything to do with FCS teams. I've gotten more in that neighborhood because the North Dakota states, South Dakotas of the world are getting very few and far between.
Shout out Yotes.
So do you really want to spend a Saturday afternoon or Saturday evening in Lincoln? No disrespect, because it's my wife's alma mater, to watch Nebraska play UNI.
And you can this year.
Yeah. But is it make sense if you are going to be a team that is trying to build a resume, that you feel you have a window of opportunity, or you're building your program to where you can be part of that college football playoff discussion, that it would behoove you to play group of 5 teams as opposed to any Power 4 teams, knowing that you might have some chinks in the armor when it comes to conference play. That in theory, if you were to have just 2 losses in a 10-2 season, that you will squarely be in the college football playoff discussion.
Probably.
Because this is the thing that I think is going to be so interesting when we turn the page over to November 1st, is if you are in the AP top 25, you will be part of the conversation. Now, it doesn't mean, there could be a team that's ranked number 24 and they still got a gauntlet in front of them.
But they're still part of the conversation.
But you're part, exactly. You're part of the conversation, which is
They still
fun.
said your name.
And then you could start imagining what it would be like to host a college football playoff game at our campus. So I think there's a lot of how the selection process will go this year as far as the at-large, how they will weigh strength of schedule.
Whatever ESPN tells them to do.
Pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
So
Duke basketball somehow is going to make it.
Well, and Tom even insinuated that maybe the neutral site game next year with Cincinnati and Indianapolis possibly goes away.
Right, because it's a big swim town. They don't need football.
Well, I don't know if it happens that soon. And I'm hopeful that we at least get some. I'm with you, Jimmy. I want to see the Tennessee thing happen.
I wanted to go to Neyland.
Absolutely. And I think it'd be great to. I mean, we saw Vol Nation here in Omaha for the College World Series. I think it'd be great to have them in Lincoln.
And I think I remembered the Tennessee series was originally scheduled for 2016, 2017 with Nebraska until Oregon, Nebraska announced their series together. So they moved that a decade later. So they've been pushing this, and now it's probably going to be no longer a thing.
Breaking news: those years have happened already.
Well, and what's kind of funny too is
time ago.
Yeah,
this is the weird thing about.
You said 16, and Nick was going to get triggered. I thought so. I was like, better keep going.
Well, 16 wasn't all bad. I mean, I got married that year. Just lost a World Series too. That people,
which one affects them more?
Start looking ahead to like 2029 and 30. Like I don't want let's talk about these next couple of years.
At our age, I just hope I'm not dead by then.
I'm with you. There's a feeling of, okay, you start finding that balance of you don't want to, and Troy Dannon's even said that they're not in the business of necessarily scheduling to 100% appease the fans, because as he's talked about, trying to have all the resources available to them.
He said he
in lane 4, as he talked about the lane 4, being able to make sure that they've got everything that is going to help them as a program move forward and be part of the big conversations. That it's going to be up to Matt Rule, his coaching staff, the way they recruit, the way they develop, to have a team that can be a part of that conversation going forward. If you are playing Tennessee every year, not every year, but if you're playing, a Tennessee, then an Oklahoma,
traditional Nebraska, Tennessee game,
you're putting a really tough opponent there in the non-conference, and knowing that maybe it's a year that you have some of those really challenging Big Ten conference games, like an Ohio State, like an Oregon, maybe a Penn State in there as well, that you all of a sudden are staring at some really challenging times all throughout the schedule. That do you let that season fully manifest into what it could possibly be? And you could think about all you had to do was just avoid one of those series and replace it with, say, a Toledo. No disrespect to MAC champion Toledo, but they're not Tennessee. You know what I'm saying? So it's not necessarily great for the home slate, but I guess what I would hope for is that the Big Ten becomes so deep that no matter what your home slate looks like from a conference standpoint, that they're going to be quality games. So yeah, I don't think that Troy Dannon it's lost on him that you've got to be able to have a home slate that is still going to interest your fans to continue to show up. I think this is where Nebraska is extremely unique compared to other college football programs, that you still have a fan base that even if you're playing Bethune-Cookman, they're probably going to show up.
Well, you have seen it before.
Absolutely. It's not great. Don't love it.
Cookman.
But if it is, I mean, I think if you had a team that you felt, all right, they're pretty good. Maybe they're not going to be a conference champion, but they could be part of the college football playoff discussion in the future years. But the best way to solidify that is to avoid a Tennessee in the non-conference, because you just don't want to add that extra challenge right there, because you've got a tough Big Ten slate as well. If that road is more plausible and has a clearer path to being part of the college football playoff conversation, wouldn't you take that?
What's the goal at the end of the day? National championship, right? If you're a good program.
If you're a good program, sure.
To win that.
At the very least, be in the college football playoff.
And to win that, get in the playoff.
Yeah, get in the college football playoff.
So as much as I hate this, because I miss good matchups in the non-conference, unfortunately, if this is what you have to do to get the main goal of getting into the playoff, then that's just part of your new normal. Does it suck? Yes.
Yeah.
You're playing directional tech. Yes, that's not going to be the most exciting. But when you're in the playoff in December and you have a chance just to get into the tournament and then try and win said tournament, then that's all that matters. Just get in. So if that's what it takes, unfortunately, that's what it takes. You know what? They've completely uprooted everything we knew about college football anyway. It should include this as well. But come on, don't cancel the Tennessee series. Just say this is the last one. This is the last go out with a bang.
Well,
I mean, they got Oklahoma coming up in several years, but yeah.
But a lot of this is going to. I mean, this is not just Nebraska.
It's everybody
that is looking at this right now, because if you get punished for playing crap teams in the non-conference
and the Big Ten, the SEC, you can get away with it,
and say you are a 2-loss team, You lost 2 conference games, but you're 10-2, but you played a horrific, like a Michigan type non-conference that Michigan has played in the past. And then there's a 9-3 team that say played a Power 4, say they played a Kansas State in non-conference, or they played a Mississippi State or Ole Miss or something like that. And then they lost 2 conference games on top of that. And they're trending, they're looking strong there towards the end.
They'll get in.
That's going to be, I think that's a conversation to be had of, you know what, they lost, and especially if, say, you lost that non-conference game against a Power 4 team and it was close. You know, this is again where the eyeballs are like, yeah, you know what, but they were competitive in that game. We feel like they would put on a much better show in the playoffs as opposed to that 10-2 team that played, you know, Northern State and, you know, FIU and all these other teams, and they lost, you know, 2 conference games, and they lost, you know, somewhat laughably. Wouldn't you value the 9-3 team a little bit more? But again, we don't. I mean, I think I would if I was on that committee, but I don't know. That's probably what's going to happen
if they're in those 2 leagues. That's what's going to happen. Oh, they're 6-6, but look who they played. Meanwhile, in the other leagues, well, they're 14-0. They haven't played anybody, so we're just going to leave them out.
Well, and that's the whole part about this entire
overdramatic
conversation.
That's basically what this is that they're eliminating the good non-conference games just to get into the playoff. That's part of the sacrifice of what's happening now.
Yeah. I mean, Troy Dannon himself has said they're not scheduling to sell tickets.
So you're just going to have to look for other reasons.
They're scheduling to do what's best for this program. And a lot of that is going to be the type of input they get in this first year of the college football playoff on how the teams that make it in that might have a 9-3 versus a 10-2 scenario of why this team got in over the other. And so then you're going to have a lot of athletic directors either pivoting or staying the course of what they have in front of them, which we know what's good for the consumer of college football when it comes to having more exciting, fun, non-conference matchups between conferences. But if it doesn't benefit you at the end of the day, why would you do it? I get that.
Oh, yeah.
I totally understand. I don't have to like it.
What's
I totally
the goal
understand
at the end of the day? Unfortunately, this probably goes with it.
But Tom brings up the one thing that I think he's absolutely right of with this new playoff format and the amount of games that are going to be played, the rarity of having an undefeated national champion that now we're going to start looking at with a 12-team playoff, the amount of games that you play and the way that the conferences have now even bolstered up more so. You're going to see a team that if they were to run the table, probably be considered as one of the great national championship teams that we've ever seen. Having to go through that many games, that much parity in conferences.
Think of how many teams in the past wouldn't have made it through it. Not because they're bad. It's just hard to win.
Right. You could be the best team in college football playing that many games. You go on the road and you get got. But then you turn it back on in the playoffs and you're able to, you know, maybe you get some favorable matchups or whatever. But to be able to run the table, that would be unbelievable. To go essentially 17-0. And then we're starting to talk about the Dolphins smoking cigars when a team in the NFL has a chance to run the table and they don't do it. You know? So
it's a lot of champagne for Mercury Morris and friends. Is he still alive? I know he's a big one of the... That's a good question. He was always a big one that would celebrate. I thought so.
That is a good question.
I know we lost Jim Kick, and we still have Larry Zonka, one of the goats of American gladiators. Zonka still looks like he can kick one's ass.
Oh, my God. I knew what's a problem with Dolphins that you...
No. I figured you're looking at some memes.
You'd have that. But, yeah, I think that's something to kind of get excited about. If you have a team that runs the table in the regular season, they win their conference championship game, so they are a playoff team, and the only way that they're going to be able to validate the work that they had in the regular season is by running the table in the college football playoff to win a national title. That's going to be something to be celebrated. I think for a while we just assumed, oh, yeah, a national champion, whether it's the BCS era and the college football playoff era, that we're going to have an undefeated team.
But even that got harder with this format.
Absolutely, it did.
Michigan might have been one of the last ones.
Yep. I think Tom's right. And it's something that I haven't really even considered because to me, a national champion's a national champion. And you go back and be like, oh yeah, they did lose a game. You know, but if it ever does happen,
Joey would tell you
without question, it'll be more celebrated than what we've seen before.
Joey would tell you the 2010 Packers were 9-7.
10
Oh,
and
I remember
6
that.
to
10
be
and 6.
exact.
Sorry.
I remember that.
I'm thinking someone else was 9 and 7.
Thank
won
you,
a Super Bowl.
Chicago.
Yeah. I remember them them beating Chicago in the last regular season game and then beating Chicago when Jay Cutler had a knee injury and Caleb Henney had to come in.
Oh, you remember that B.J. Raji pick 6?
Who
Yeah.
doesn't? We all celebrated a fat guy touchdown.
And then the amount of shade old Jay Cutler got for being a wuss and not finishing out the game.
Yeah.
They should have just.
I
had a
was
heater
I
on
was
the
still standing
sideline.
up for, because remember it was oh gosh, who was the running back that was just going off on him on Twitter? The little running back from Jacksonville.
Maurice Jones-Drew.
Thank you, MGS. Maurice Jones-Drew was just skewering Jay Cutler. I was still standing up for him at that point. I was still very naive.
The 11 Giants went 9 and 7. That's what I was thinking of. The following year.
Do you guys think we will have? This is where I think the NFL game and the college football game are so different. I don't think we're going to have a fringe team that makes the college football playoff and goes on a run. I don't think we're not there.
Maybe one year you may get it, but it's going to be a very rare. We'd like to think, but
Like the whole NFL get to the tournament is a real thing because we have
and
examples.
Parcells always said that. Just get in the tournament.
Same thing in Major League Baseball.
Just get in.
You get to it. You got to see, those games. You got to see.
Once we get used to things with the 12-team playoff, we'll probably find someone eventually. Probably not a group of 5 team.
Well,
But yeah,
it's going to
someone
expand. Well, you guys know it's going to expand to 16. So I bet you with the 12-team format, while in its
Eventually
short
it's going to
life,
be 128.
Yeah.
The whole season is going to be
Might
a
as
damn
well.
playoff.
and its short life though, I bet we will not. Well, I'll say now, we won't see it. We won't see a team that got hot at the end make the playoff and all of a sudden go on a roll.
From the Big 56.
16.
I wouldn't
maybe.
be shocked if it was an SEC school. I would be shocked if it was.
Mhm.
If they
Any
had
other team.
maybe if they had injury early on,
Yeah.
and then they got healthy. Okay, I could entertain that.
Or if it was
Because they
Alabama
have-
and
They
ESPN
get
put them
the
in
tough
there.
schedules.
Yeah, I could entertain that. But I think as far as a team that, for the most part has had similar health situations as everybody else, but all of a sudden, they won 6 in a row, but they're
on a
an
heater.
at-large, but they're still not necessarily considered to be one of the best at the top 5 for that team to just run the table.
It's not like a hot goalie.
Or a good starting rotation.
Mm-hmm.
We do want to give our listeners a chance to win here on Whiskey Wednesday. Caller 4 right now, 402-951-1620. If you want to check out Whiskey Wednesday, we got a pair of passes for you, a $200 value, by the way, to check out Whiskey Wednesday on September 28th at the Hilton Omaha downtown. Caller 4 right now, 402-951-1620 will get themselves a pair of passes to the Whiskey Fest 2024. We got more coming up after this on 1620 The Zone. Oh, I'm in that crossroads where I either have to poop or pee. Might both come out. Caller number 2, call back. Way too much caffeine. Oh, well, we'll see what happens.
Huh?
I'll be standing, but I might have to stay. Caller number 3, you're close. 1620 The Zone. Can I get a name?
Grant? Well, congratulations, Grant. You're number 4. Can I get your full name? How you spell your last name? What's your phone number? All right, your email? Alrighty, and your home address?
I like this because I just feel like. Anyway, could you imagine if the Storm Chasers had a death metal jingle? That would be something. A lot of screaming, a lot of growling. Chase that fun. If you don't listen to the show on a regular basis, I do love that jingle. I don't know why. I think that's called Stockholm Syndrome, but I love it. So I hope they win every game. I hope you'll join the VIP club and sign up for 1620 the email. You'll be the first to know all the exciting content that's happening on 1620 the zone, even before some of us know it, including sports news, contest promotions, and more. Sign up today at 1620thezone.com. If you're driving on Dodge right now, pull over immediately. Go to 1620thezone.com. Make sure you turn your hazards on and park in the lane that's, off the side of the road. You don't want to just stop in the middle of the traffic. And then sign up. Sign up your family. Sign up everyone,
Apparently, we were hot mic'd in the commercial break, too, so people knew about probably my bathroom dilemma. Had a lot of caffeine.
That's happened before.
Didn't know what was going to happen there.
Yeah.
So, you're welcome.
I didn't say anything. I was reading.
Get a little inside look right there. Congratulations to Grant, by the way. He's going to Omaha Whiskey Fest 2024.
Be a fun time.
Yeah. So that is
good thing you didn't say anything else, by the way, Nick.
I don't think I did.
We've said some stuff.
Who knows?
During the breaks.
Who knows? Yeah, my biggest problem during the break was I had to decide just too much caffeine today.
Not enough. What are you talking about? Too much caffeine is a good way to start.
I think I finally hit my fill. The 28th. So is it the
September 28th,
the Whiskey Fest on September 28th. That will also be an 11 a.m. Purdue game. So there you go. You get the early kickoff, then you get to go to Whiskey Fest.
Over to that.
It works out well.
They're going to have Ubers and other people to drive you so that you don't have to drive. They told us this last week in studio.
That's awesome that they actually do have safe rides set up and everything. That's so good stuff. If you look at the Big Ten from a year ago, obviously we know Michigan reigned supreme. Ohio State was pretty good in their own right.
There were less teams in the league.
Yes, there was. Now we add 4. I want to look at some win totals for 2024, and you guys, you can have your thoughts on this one as well when it comes to, and feel free to join in on the conversation on the stream or the Equitable Bank inbox as well. But the teams that are most likely to elevate from a year ago, and the teams that in this new Big Ten that look like they are going to take a little bit of a fall. Now, I want to start off with the Captain Obvious one, based on what the Vegas line win totals are, and a team that found themselves in a national championship game last year that is now part of the Big Ten in Washington. So Washington's win total in 2024.
New coach,
new quarterback. You got a lot of new things going on with Washington. New conference. Their over-under win total is set at 7. So if
7.5.
If you think about Washington, a team that went 14-1 last year, if you were to hit that number, you would have half of the wins that you had the previous year. That would be a good candidate for the biggest fall. I want to do
50% drop.
Well, I don't want to say let's exclude Washington.
Well, now you're changing the rules.
I know. I am. I'm kind of moving the goalposts on this one. By the way, the under of Washington is minus 110. So that's actually more of the plays on Washington not doing any better than 6 wins. So that would be quite a drop. Looking at teams that look to make the biggest jump, because Michigan obviously stood the top of the Big Ten mountain a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State wasn't far behind. So essentially, and their win total this year is 10.5. So if they hit the over, which the over is getting the money at minus 175, that you would look at a Ohio State team that even with an improvement from a year ago wouldn't be a great jump. So when I look at this, I'm thinking about teams that were maybe in the 5, 6, 7 win total that could elevate themselves a lot. Now, even Penn State was a 10-win team last year. If you're looking at some of those candidates, I would throw Rutgers as a 7-win team a year ago.
No, we do love Rutgers on this show.
Indiana, even if they had marginal success, remember, Indiana was a 3-9 team last year. And
I think they hired a hell of a coach.
Yeah,
though.
Kurt Cignetti.
That dude's going to be all right.
Do they make a bowl game? That would be quite the jump. Iowa was a 10-win team last year. And people forget because of the bowl win. Northwestern was an 8-win team a year ago. Then you look at
And they were
Wisconsin at
supposed to go
7-6. Yes, they were. Yeah. And
How'd that work out?
again, they just, I don't know if they just find themselves a good coach after one gets dismissed, like Pat Fitzgerald. But David Braun, good on him.
Smart kids. That's what they do. Homework.
Team that I think has the biggest jump in the Big Ten this year, based on where they were a year ago, I am going to go with Rutgers.
That's your jump.
That's my jump.
Okay.
They were 7-6, but it's not just their, because I think they have the opportunity to improve their win total in the regular season to get to 9 wins and possibly a bowl victory. Their schedule definitely allows for that to happen. And with what they have, the only big question that I'd have right now, because they got running back figured out, they got some transfer wideouts. My only big question with them would be Athan Kalikmanis. We saw the good and bad, mostly inconsistency at Minnesota. He's the ride or die guy at Rutgers. I think Rutgers I put in as the bigger jump because again, a lot of these teams that are going to be better than Rutgers already have accomplished at least close to that ceiling or cap. As far as the biggest fall, this one is, I think, even more of a challenging discussion. And again, Washington would be the ideal candidate for that, right? Because of what they did a year ago and what they essentially accomplished in the offseason and losing everything. I guess that's not an accomplishment. Oregon was a 12-win team last year. USC was an 8-win team last year. The team that I think has the bigger drop is a new addition. And I think that's going to be UCLA.
Gee, saw that coming.
Yes. And not that
You're not wrong.
We're going to be talking to James Williams coming up too about that UCLA team. But if you look at what UCLA's win total is right now, they are at 5.5 and the under is the play. So let's say they hit 5. You're 3 less. But I think it's kind of similar to how I think Rutgers makes the biggest jump, not just from a win standpoint, but you see the product looking a lot less Rutgers-ish, if that makes sense to
like
people.
Greg Schiano teams.
Yeah.
Tough.
I think UCLA,
very physical.
I think that they struggle a lot. You had a pretty damn good defense last year. You lose that DC. Obviously, you had a coach that some people would tell you would be on the hot seat no matter what this year anyway. And Chip Kelly just decides, you know what? I'm good. I'm gonna have less stress. Well, I mean, I guess probably no such thing as less stress in Columbus, Ohio. But I'm just going to be in the lab.
But you can just coach football. Head coaches have to
Exactly.
do all this other extracurricular stuff. The assistants, they just want coach.
Exactly.
Just want to coach ball. That's it. And that's what Chip wants to do. And you still get paid very well to do so.
Right. But Deshawn Foster being a new coach, not sure if you had the time to do a full season search, if they would still land on him. He's a UCLA guy, very well respected within the program. Is this going to be too much for him? Not sure. But what I would say is,
I hope he has success now, just because everyone has been crapping on him.
Well,
I also bias because I loved Deshawn Foster when he played at UCLA and then in the NFL. So damn good.
Do you guys have anybody different? I think UCLA biggest fall.
UCLA is fair. Northwestern has to be discussed because 8-5, they very much overachieved. They don't have a home stadium this year. They have the tiny baby stadium and they have Wrigley. I think that's going to matter. It's nice and everything.
I think Northwestern's a good one, Jimmy. Northwestern, by the way,
4-8.
4.5 is their win total, and the over is actually getting a little bit of a.
They'll be 4-8, but they're not going to be embarrassing. They're still well coached. They had some things go their way last year. Sometimes you regress to the mean. And as far as your jump, I like Indiana. Signetti is a good coach. I've set it up for them to go 2-10, but they were 3-9 this year. I really think they can get to 6-6. They're going to impress.
That would hit the.
He said they're going to win the Big Ten.
They're at 5.5. That would hit the over.
I mean, you got to talk about if I say Nebraska is going to be 8-4 this year, they're going to have to be considered with a big jump. If we're playing by those rules, I gave Indiana at least 3 more wins. You could be giving Rutgers 3 more wins, and you give Nebraska 3 more wins, then they're in that discussion.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because that's kind of the idea behind this exercise.
Because we live here.
Is where does Nebraska fall in the how big of a jump can they make?
They're 8-4. That's going to say something. We've said they could be 7-0 going to Columbus. They said. I'm not saying I'm saying. That's not the point.
Yeah, for me, Nebraska would be a candidate.
If they're 6-1, 7, you know what I mean? When you get to that point, you are talking about coach of the year possibility.
Mhm.
That's just a fact. Now, whether it stays that way, it's a lot of football left to play after that.
It's a fair point, Jimmy.
Love is going to start coming because if you're going to criticize, what's up, Paul Feinbaum? If you're going to criticize, then you better sure as hell give credit when credit is due. And if they are making those kind of strides, it's not because they're using voodoo. They're actually putting in the work and coaching up the players and developing the program. So for the point of this exercise, then I guess I've talked myself into, then yeah, Nebraska has to be among those to take the big leap.
And if Nebraska is a team that can
if they win 4 more
get
games,
off to a
over.
good start and they live in the top 25 for the majority of the season and they end the season in the top 25,
That's
to me,
the point of this exercise.
To me, that would qualify as a major jump.
They did it.
That definitely would. Rutgers, I also think, and remember, Greg Schiano, he's a Rutgers guy, and this being his second stint. But for a team that already won 7 games, I think I wouldn't even call it pressure, but I think it's a team now that has a little bit more built-in expectations of tangible reason.
He's built that program back up to pretty much where he had it when he left the first time. So now you can really start to make strides in the new league. And we've talked about that Rutgers game coming up on October 5th, and that could be a sneaky, really good game and a tough game. If Nebraska ends up losing to Rutgers that day, as weird as that is to say, there's no shame in that because that is going to be a tough football team. That being said, you're at home. Those are the games you have to win. Those are good teams you're playing, and you have to line up and say, hey, we're a good team. We're better. But at Rutgers gets a lot of love on this show, and I get why. If they let us down, we're going to look stupid. But I do think, they're going to be, nobody's going to want to play them only because they seem like the type of team that you're going to know you've been in a battle with them, even if you win, because you're going to be very sore the next day.
But the new additions that they have on the schedule from the added Big Ten is Washington, SC, and UCLA. They avoid Oregon.
Good.
They avoid Ohio State.
For once.
They avoid Michigan.
For once.
And no Penn State.
For once.
So you look at all
set up for
of
them.
that. It is. Now, Virginia Tech and the non-con in Blacksburg, that's going to be challenging. If this team came into Lincoln at 4-0, look out. I mean, think about that.
CBS game that day. I could see it being a 2:30 CBS game.
That would be
it's a good matchup.
Very impressive. I think even 3-1, Rutgers coming into Lincoln would still be pretty sizable as far as where that team is starting, because after Nebraska, however that game goes for both teams, you've got Wisconsin, UCLA, USC. Now, the Wisconsin and the UCLA game, by the way, are both at home. By then, have they drummed up some excitement where that could be, well, they're doing, I just noticed they're doing a scarlet out against the Wisconsin Badgers.
The Wisconsin game, you don't want to leave your keys in the car with the car running.
Well, and the UCLA game is a homecoming. Then they go on the road to SC. Then they're back home against Minnesota.
USC.
Then
put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Well, then they're at Maryland. Then they're home to Illinois. And then they're at Michigan State. I mean, from a scheduling
now you're
standpoint,
talking me into 10 wins for them.
But I do think that game on October 5th in Lincoln could be indicative of two teams, if things can go as forecasted based on schedule, who they have from a personnel standpoint. And yeah, let's factor in the coaches too. Mm-hmm. The winner of that game might be your winner of the taking the biggest jump in the Big Ten. Now, obviously, both teams have a lot of schedule in front of them, especially Nebraska, where the back end of their schedule is more loaded.
Rutgers can make the playoff. They're 10-2. If we're going by this logic of what happens,
you know what, Jimmy?
In the SEC,
if they're 4-0 going into that game against Nebraska, let's have that conversation, because they will have beaten Virginia Tech and Blacksburg.
True, which
would
tough
be
to do.
Big thing. And if they were to beat Nebraska in Lincoln on an improved Nebraska team on the road, you would have won a game against Virginia Tech and Blacksburg and Nebraska and Lincoln. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, we're having that conversation.
It might be America's team at that point, just because people get behind Rutgers. What is a Rutgers? What state is that?
Then everybody will forget about Greg Schiano and his time at Tampa Bay. I think people have already, too. think Greg Schiano was also done dirty at Tennessee.
Even at Tampa Bay, I thought of him as Rutgers.
Oh.
That's a compliment. That program, very much his identity, and it's a good fit for both.
But if Nebraska wins that game, and again, that would maybe keep them on schedule of the whole, hey, can they start the season at 6-1 or 5-2, or dare I say 7-0?
That's not a win to poo-poo. If you beat Rutgers, that's a solid team. That says, hey, that is a good, well-coached football team, and they lined up and they took it to them.
No, it's absolutely huge. When we come back, I mentioned the NFL Sunday ticket price was trending yesterday, and we'll tell you why next
If you
year.
work in radio, you're not getting it.
1620 The Zone. Hey, friend of foe segment coming your way. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're
I
okay.
didn't realize you had, gosh, we got a lot going on, don't
Yeah,
we?
but,
Go
no,
ahead.
but I mean, it's still coming up. But you know
Do
what's
it.
also coming up? Fall. It's just around the corner. And 1620 The Zone is giving you the chance to win season passes to Nebraska's favorite fall attraction that will be bumping on Saturday, October 12th. That is Vallis Pumpkin Patch. You could win 2024, that's the year we currently are living in, season passes to Vallis and enjoy all the fall family fun that Vallis has to offer. The Peterman had a food breakdown comprehensive the other day. It all sounds amazing. Enter to win right now at 1620thezone.com. One of the things he said was strawberry rhubarb pie. I don't know if that's a trash food take, but I like it. But I should also preface it by saying I like all pies. And I got the medical numbers to prove it.
The Apple Store surcharge, if you are to get NFL Sunday Ticket on
So they're
YouTube and
charging you
YouTube TV.
More on top of more.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, dear.
So essentially, this was announced.
Yeah, how much am I not
earlier.
paying this year?
Well, I think that, this is it's a lot.
I'd rather buy a pair of shoes.
If you have an Apple, iPhone, or iPad product, so see, that's why I'm a Droid guy. It is a cost of $679 annually without NFL Red Zone, or $719.99 annually with NFL Red Zone. And if you're going to get it, you got to have the Red Zone, don't you?
That's all I want. Just give me the Red Zone. I'm not paying $679 to watch my sorry ass team go 8-8 again.
I just
forever.
want the single team bundle so I don't have to worry about the overlap with the Kansas City Chiefs.
Right. I hate, you hate your team.
Well,
not your team.
So the current prices, by the way, are $379 and $419 for those packages with just a YouTube TV subscription.
Okay.
And then if you are new to it, there are some discounts. I saw some people popping in some different promo codes that I think give you like $150 off of it for that first year, and then it goes back up to the regular price. I saw $480 and $520 with just if you don't already subscribe to YouTube TV.
I'll just go to an establishment. I don't know which ones we can say now.
Jimmy, there was a time that I thought,
anymore,
boy, it cost me more to go to a bar and watch the Bears play. But now if I'm looking at this, like I feel bad for bashing on DirecTV when I'm like, what? I got to pay something now?
Have a Coke and a burger. It'll cost you $37, still less than the Sunday ticket.
Now, this should be noted, though, that it is not a separate NFL Sunday Ticket app in the Apple Store. This is about an in-app purchase through the YouTube app or YouTube TV app. So there are ways to avoid this if you're basically going through, I should say, not going through the actual in-app from Apple. But
there are ways to avoid this, all right.
Well, there are ways to avoid that. Sometimes not the most safe ways on your PC.
Well, no, just all together. Just not going to buy it.
Or you just don't buy it. That's true. But
wait for the 10-minute ticker on NBC. If you know, you know.
Anyone who specifically needs to buy the NFL Sunday Ticket in any forms, like through Apple, these surcharges are kind of hitting you in the app purchases, but this isn't universal through it. So I know a lot of people were losing their mind when they saw the prices of this last night, thinking it cost me this much to get the NFL Sunday Ticket. Mm-hmm. Make sure you understand that this is through Apple in the in-app purchases and not just universal.
So you're being penalized.
Yes. Yeah,
that makes no sense.
I know. Well, you do things for convenience. Is it worth an extra $300?
No.
I would say no. I would definitely say no. My YouTube TV hack, as far as it's based on area code, I think it's holding on by a thread. I have a feeling this could be the last year because I've noticed that we've had other people in our little network that are doing the same thing that have been shut down. Not shut down entirely from viewing anything on YouTube TV.
Was it Lars Ulrich? Is he after this now?
Right. He's
25 years ago was Napster. Now it's your football.
I'm already shut down from using my family's account, who lives in Colorado. They're
starting to get wise. They might have been slow to it.
Greedy.
But the beauty is you can always see, this is where I think Reddit is really, really good because they can always give you some really good life hacks to stay ahead of.
Shout out Reddit.
They are. They know ways to save money too. So I'm just telling you, if you saw that price though, don't freak out. It's just through these certain measures of Apple and in-app purchases. It's not necessarily just the price
on
itself.
12 times a year.
But again, you know how you avoid that?
You don't buy it.
Or you take advantage of our great FanDuel.
We're not in
offer
bed with
going on.
them, right?
With
YouTube and all that.
Not really.
All right, then yeah, you don't buy it, but we are in bed with FanDuel. So all your disposable income,
we want you to save money.
Go there.
Yeah, we want you to save money.
And take Rutgers, the over.
So UCLA, they will be on Nebraska's schedule towards the end. How will that team look? We told you what their win total is. New coach, new DC, a new era of Bruin football. We will get into that with Orange County Register's James Williams covering the UCLA beat right after this. Coming up this hour, going to be talking to Brandon Vogel, Counter Reed. Some good numbers on the turnovers that our metrics guy and beyond, Brandon Vogel. Some good stuff. We'll get to him here in just a little bit. Hour 4 here, Mornings with Sharp and Handley. Nick and Jimmy and Joey with you. Appreciate you making us part of your morning. So what we have coming up in November is our little Southern California swing where Nebraska will host UCLA. Then they will go out after a bye week to Southern Cal and take on USC. But this is also an interesting stretch of games for Nebraska. UCLA, Southern Cal, then Wisconsin and Iowa after playing Ohio State. That's when they will play UCLA. What type of team will Nebraska have? What type of team will UCLA have? Well, time to talk a little friend and foe segment. The Bruins of UCLA making their debut in the Big Ten, and we talked about where this team was a year ago. The win totals for UCLA, which, again, given what they lost, new coaching staff, at 5.5 is where UCLA's win total is right now. To talk more about the Bruins, we welcome in James Williams on the UCLA beat in the Orange County Register. Good morning, James. How are you?
Good morning. How are you guys? I'm sitting here in LA traffic, so hopefully you guys can hear me okay.
We hear you well, and we know
Omaha's about the same.
You won't be moving anywhere anytime soon right now. Yeah, I'm looking at our traffic right now. It's moving swiftly. I'm assuming that is not the case for you.
A Dodge Neon?
No.
Well, James, the last time I talked to you, it was when UCLA and USC had officially been announced as new members of the Big Ten. They obviously weren't in the conference yet. This was before Oregon and Washington were going to join as well. And we talked about the impact of that, what that would mean for UCLA. And so since the time it was announced that they would be leaving the Pac-12 and joining the Big Ten to now it being official and having a couple other teams from the Pac-12 joining them, what is the overall sentiment around the UCLA football program with this move?
Yeah, I think it's still kind of interesting. I mean, I think at some point in the season with the travel and whatnot, it'll hit them like a ton of bricks probably. But until then, it's still just kind of, especially for the football team, more specifically, they're still kind of going through camp, treating everything like normal. So there's not a whole lot of a different feel yet. I mean, yeah, whenever you see the jerseys from media day and stuff, you see the patch, the Big Ten patch, that's different. Yeah. When we talked to Deshawn Foster during his media availability during practice, you have the banner, the backdrop in the background, and that has the Big Ten logo on it. But other than that, I mean, they're downplaying it a little bit just in terms of, hey, we're worried about ourselves at this point in the process. But, I mean, they're used to playing 3 straight non-conference games. They're going to Hawaii for week 1, and then boom, they're right in the Big Ten with a game at home against Indiana. So it's going to happen pretty fast for them. And I think there will be a point in the season where things will kind of be a little bit of an eye-opener for them at some time soon here.
UCLA was such a proud member of the Pac-12, Pac-10, Pac-8. And now the Big Ten, when I think about, yes, there's the other 2 schools in the Northwest, but when I think about UCLA and I think about USC, yes, there's excitement about some of these new opponents, but is there also a little bit of sadness because people don't understand they cared about the Pac-10 quite a lot out there. It meant something. So for it to go away, I don't think it's something that was taken lightly. It's just that was the business.
Yeah, clearly kind of just a business move. I mean, some people will look at it as, hey, UCLA is just tagging along because USC was looking to move and they needed a dance partner and they were hoping it wasn't going to be Washington or Oregon, let alone find out Washington and Oregon found their way into the Big Ten as well. But yeah, it was definitely a sad moment. And it is probably still sad for a lot of those fans that have been longtime UCLA fans, just because of, they had a common opponent nearly every year, and they probably were pretty friendly at some point, I would think, with some of these other fan bases and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like when you've been in a familiar setting for so long, or you've been on the same job for so long, and all of a sudden you're moving to a different job or whatever the case may be. It's different. And I'm sure there's some jitters and some different things that are going to come along with it. And just a lot of the tradition, some of the bigger traditions that have kind of gone away as a result is what has happened with Cal and Stanford. I mean, there was, I think I did the math at some point. It was like 100 consecutive years or something close to it. They had played with Cal and Stanford year after year. And that almost got lost with the Cal and UCLA game during the COVID year, but they had to cancel games, and those 2 came together and put a game together, and that rivalry continued on. But with the loss of the Pac-12, yeah, that's just going out the window this year. So stuff like that kind of gets lost. But I think there's also a little bit of an excitement as far as what it can do in terms of ideally bringing in some new faces to the Rose Bowl in terms of attendance, because the Rose Bowl attendance hasn't been what they would like it to be, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously when it's a stadium that can seat anywhere from 80,000, 90,000, 100,000, depending on the event, and then you get these wide shots when they're playing Hawaii at home the way they have in years past, and the stadium's half empty. I don't know if you'll get as much of that when you have some of these Big Ten teams, especially those that weren't frequent visitors for the Rose Bowl game itself and are hungry for their first look maybe at the Rose Bowl. You may see some better turnouts. So I think there's a little bit of excitement when you kind of consider those things as well.
Yeah, we're going next year.
Talking to James Williams of the Orange County Register on the UCLA beat here on 1620 The Zone. James, maybe one of the more sneaky, really good hires in the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
We'll find out about Deshawn Foster, but Eric Bieniemy as the offensive coordinator, coming off of his success mainly with Kansas City, but also in Washington and that short stint there. Now back in the college game. What's that been like so far? And more importantly, in handling this offense that maybe doesn't have the much hype superstar of a Dante Moore, but does have a guy like Ethan Garbers who takes care of the football, which we know in Nebraska, that can be a big deal.
Yeah, it's been interesting, right? Obviously, when Chip Kelly was in town running the program, he was his own offensive coordinator, so you weren't having to look at two different guys. You were just looking at Chip. So I just think from that standpoint, maybe it helps the players just to have a different voice in the room. Obviously, they're familiar with Deshawn Foster, but having that new voice in the room with Eric Bieniemy. Now, in terms of speaking of voices, during the spring, we've had the opportunity to watch over the practice facility from the parking structure when they've made that open to the public. And you will know where Eric Bieniemy is on the field at all times. He's very vocal. He's very, I don't know if demanding is the word, but he expects a lot out of his players. And obviously, the players are going through some growing pains very early on as they're learning and figuring out the offense. Obviously, Chip Kelly ran a pretty complex offense just in terms of those guys having to learn different things and knowing what's what. And I think there's going to be some of that too. And I think maybe those guys are smarter because of having to work in a Chip Kelly offense. And I think they've appeared to manage well. I think the thing that they've kind of gravitated to, especially someone like Ethan Garbers, who says, hey, I like the fact that he's hard on us, that he can be tough on us at times, but at the same time, he'll sit with us during lunch and he wants to get to know us as guys off of the field as just normal human beings. But I think the thing that is attractive to a lot of these guys is they can say, hey, this is a guy that's been in the NFL. This is a guy who's coached and worked with Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce. This guy has been to Super Bowls, right? So I think they look at that. And for someone like Garbers who says, hey, my goal, my dream one day is to play in the NFL. And if this guy's done it, he's been there. He's been a player. He's been a coach at that level. Why would I not want to listen to a guy like that? So they've all been pretty receptive to the idea of Eric Bieniemy and what he brings. Obviously, there's these reasons or the word going around on why Eric Bieniemy was never able to land a head coaching job in the NFL. Maybe that changes here at the college level within the next year or two. But whatever the rumors and stuff about him not getting along with players and all that, we haven't seen any of that so far. In the early months here since he's arrived, but yeah, I would say it's been pretty positive. Now, talking to him when he talks to the media, I think he comes off very well. And the thing that I've noticed about him is that he knows he's working with young men, and he likes the idea that he has that opportunity to work with the younger group and help bring them along, not to only be better football players, but to be better young men.
Talking with James Williams, who covers UCLA for the Orange County Register. And James, everybody talked about Deshawn Foster after Big Ten Media Days for the wrong reasons, but you get a chance to see him up close and personal and actually get to know him in Southern California. What is he like? Because, I knew when I saw that, that's not Deshawn, but now people are going to get to actually know him, and I think it was sort of an unfair assessment, but I understand at the same time.
Yeah, it was a little bit of an unfair assessment of him, especially. And I mean, hey, that's kind of a tough first impression But also that's kind of a tough situation when you consider you're in a half empty Colts stadium there, and then you have rows and rows of media in front of you. Like I've been saying, I don't know if I would have done any better in that situation. So I can't knock the guy for that. But yeah, the thing is he hasn't had – Chip Kelly did all the talking, and we didn't get a lot of assistant coaches even just talking to us in the more intimate settings for the media scrums at practice. So much like a football player, Deshawn didn't get a lot of those reps in front of the mic and talking to us other than maybe during his playing days. So he still maybe has a little work to do on that, but I think he's also the kind of guy, especially being a player that's competitive, that he's not going to let that happen again, and he's going to learn from that. But how he's been at practice, I think, he's pretty exciting, and he's all about his guys. Obviously, the guys wanted Deshawn Foster there. There was talk of, I think, UCLA maybe meeting or reaching out to PJ Fleck immediately after Chip Kelly had kind of announced he was leaving, but the players demanded that they have Deshawn Foster, and I think they got their guy. And in doing so, you prevented a mass exodus of guys going into that transfer portal, and you got a lot of these guys coming back. So there's a lot of respect there for Deshawn Foster. Obviously, they like him, and he's a relatable guy, I think, to a lot of the guys. He's not that far removed from being at UCLA himself and kind of going through the coaching ranks there as well. So, and again, a guy who's been at the NFL level before. So he checks off all those boxes. And if you look at what he did the rest of that media day outside of that moment that he had, he was kind of hitting it out of the park when he was doing the different, on set kind of, interviews and whatnot. So I would tell people to look beyond just what that initial impression was and see what he's able to do going forward, because at the end of the day, they want to win games, and we'll see how many they're able to win in year one here.
James, the schedule didn't do UCLA much favors, especially that. Well, when you look at that back-to-back LSU, Oregon, and then, how about Penn State? We'll throw that in there as well. There's a stretch, obviously, and this was a team who won 8 games last year. This is a team that had a very good defense, and I know they lost not only the DC, but a couple of major pieces to that. But in your assessment of what this group realistically accomplishes or should be expected to, what does success look like for UCLA in 2024?
Yeah, so it depends on who you ask. If you ask Deshawn Foster, they're looking to win games and be competitive from the jump. And one of his players, I don't necessarily want to put his name out there, even though it was a public interview, but he said, the goal is to win a Big Ten championship. Now, is that realistic? Maybe not. But at the same time, what else would you expect a player to say, especially when they're in that locker room each and every day? That's the goal, right? So, hey, if it happens, it happens. But for me personally, I kind of treat this as a year zero for them, more or less just because of when you look at the hiring cycle, they were on the other end of the hiring cycle when Chip Kelly leaves and Deshawn comes in. Deshawn had moved on just a couple weeks before he was hired at UCLA. He had left and was the Oakland, or not the Oakland, but the Las Vegas Raiders, He was their running backs coach for the Raiders and Antonio Pierce, and they bring him back as soon as Chip Kelly leaves within a matter of days. So I don't even think he got settled in at Las Vegas. And he was right back at UCLA where he wanted to be, and that's their guy, and that's where he wants to be. So they're going to look to win. I don't know how many games they will win. I kind of been looking at somewhere around 6 games, maybe. I've talked to some UCLA fans that have the high expectation of 8 games. I don't really see 8 games this year, but I would say it's somewhere around 5 to 6. And I think the goal would be really just trying to be in the mix for a bowl game here at the end of the season.
James, to wrap up, if you were to look at the areas of this team that, let's say they are successful, say they do get to, because I think hitting the over 6 to 7 wins, given that schedule, would be somewhat impressive. I would agree. I think a lot of people kind of look at it similar as a year zero. If that is to happen, what would you say would be the catalyst behind that? What would lead UCLA to being able to reach that number?
Yeah, I think 2 things, right? I think it's going to be Ethan Garbers having to be their guy and produce some quality offense for them as the guy leading the huddle. They do bring back running back T.J. Harden, and they have a great group there in terms of their wide receivers. So they have all the weapons they need to be successful on offense. But I think it's really on the defense. You lose Viatu Latu, who was the number 1 defensive player taken in the draft. You also lose the Murphy twins, Carl Jones. You lost a lot of production there with that pass rush. So there's just a big question mark on who it is that's going to be producing any sort of pass rush for them this year. Obviously, the expectation is going to be high just because what the bar was last year and how high that was set. But Jacob Busick is a guy that I think he transferred in from Navy. He had 2 productive years last year, was dealing with an injury. He comes in this year and is a guy that maybe can lead them. Devin Apayu is another guy that's been on the roster, transferred in from Notre Dame a few years ago. You'll kind of be looking at his first significant playing time this year in a Bruins uniform. But again, they've also been trying some different linebackers there on the edge rush. Femi Oladipo and also Kane Madrano are some guys that they've been exploring. So they're still trying to find the recipe that can work for them. And maybe that bleeds into the season a little bit during this first game or two. But when you start hitting that 3-game stretch there with Oregon, Penn State, and LSU, they're going to have their act together if they want to at least try and win one of those 3 games.
James, great stuff. Appreciate you spending time with us. I'm assuming we'll see you in Lincoln in November. But, hey, welcome to the Big Ten. Enjoy it. We look forward to maybe catching up with you here in November.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I've been told I need a winter coat, so I'm in search of one.
Now, to be fair,
welcome to the Big Ten.
Some years in early November, it can be unseasonably warm, so it might be 70 that day.
That's a confusing thing I've heard, too. So I'm like, I don't know how I feel if I have to bring a winter coat, and then it's like sunny or something.
Yeah.
So if you see southwest wind, and especially the higher the wind speed in the forecast, you're probably going to get a warm day in the fall.
Yeah, the northwest wind or northeast
Northwest,
wind.
not your friend.
You got to look.
Southwest, think 70s.
Yeah.
I might be reaching out to you guys for a weather report as we get closer here.
All good. Appreciate it, James. Have a good one, man.
Thank you, guys.
James Williams covering the UCLA beat for the Orange County Register. So Nebraska, UCLA, that'll be on the 2nd of November. Nebraska will be coming off the Ohio State game on the 26th. UCLA, their schedule is a beast. So before the Nebraska game, they will be coming off of a bye, but before that, they would have had Rutgers. But you look at their schedule, and by most publications, UCLA is ranked number 1 with most difficult schedule in the Big Ten. Ranked number 1's cool, but not when you have the toughest schedule. Yeah, that LSU to Oregon stretch, then, by the way, did you have some fun against LSU and Baton Rouge?
Maybe UNI isn't looking so bad.
Then Oregon. Then you get Penn State in State College. So that 3-game swing right there. And don't overlook this one,
if they
too.
win 6 games, Deshawn should be the coach of the year.
Their home opener in 2024 is Indiana.
Oh, of course.
So they've got Indiana out of the gate.
What is this, Western University basketball? The first game of the year against Indiana?
Then they wrap up kind of an interesting finale of their regular season. They play Fresno State.
Of course.
But they go Iowa, Washington, SC to end conference play after that Nebraska game. So
Fresno State's
got
at
Rutgers. Fresno State is at home, yes.
Yeah, I'm going to set the over-under at 31,000 for attendance and take the under, especially a week after the SC game.
Man, if they won 6 games, that would be a very good season.
I mean,
that'd be a great season for UCLA.
I don't think it's going to happen, but if it does.
Well, and so much has been made, and I understand it about Chip Kelly to Ohio State with the group of players that he has. One of the sneaky ones that I don't know if we talk about as much, and it's going to be interesting, is Eric Bieniemy as the OC at UCLA. Now in the college game, there was always talk about, even before Prime got the job in Colorado, of like, would Eric Bieniemy be a candidate to go back to his alma mater?
When Prime goes to the Cowboys next year, would he and Ryan Walters would probably be at the top of the list?
You're looking at
good coaches.
All of a sudden, Ryan Walters, who is
they're buff guys,
been in the Big Ten. Now you've got
buff, but buffs.
Yeah, you'll have 2 guys that have had Big Ten coaching experience, would be possibly going to the Big 12. But I think the part of Eric Bieniemy with Deshawn Foster is going to be something to watch about how that offense performs, because everybody remembers Dante Moore, and he was, you could see a lot of upside to him, but he was a pick machine. Garbers is, at least, if there's a redeeming quality, I think he only threw 3 picks last year. So, I mean,
he threw 6 to me in the video game the other day, but that's a different conversation.
Well, yeah. Did you have it on Heisman mode, though? Or did you have it on?
No.
Did you have it on,
My
on
defense,
freshman?
my defense is mean. We run the ball. We don't throw more than 5 times, and we kick ass on defense.
Do either one of you guys play college football EA Sports College Football on All American mode?
I haven't yet.
Yeah, I haven't.
I have before, but not in this.
I would play All American on the NCAA 14 game, and I was fine with that.
Did you dominate still?
Yeah, I dominated.
That's all that matters.
With Nebraska and Dynasty into 2047. Expect to play Navy in the national championship game.
Which by then will be part of the SEC.
Who, Navy?
Yeah. We'll see, because it'll be a resurgence. And as
Bring
our
the
continents are
triple option.
returning back to Pangea, you'll have a 56 team SEC and a 74 team Big Ten.
Yeah.
And the Big 12 will have 106 teams.
We're going to talk Brandon Vogel of Counter Read here in just a little bit. We're back with more here on Mornings with Sharp and Handley. It's Jimmy, Nick, and Joey, 1620 The Zone. Going to be talking to Brandon Vogel of Counter Read here in just about 10 minutes. Mornings with Sharp and Handley. It is Nick and Jimmy and Joey. Appreciate you being with us. We had some sad news over the last 24 hours with Nebraska basketball. And in a way, I almost wish Gary was here to reflect a little bit more on this, because I know he had a little bit more of a relationship. I just knew of Jimmy Williams, but Jimmy Williams, the former Nebraska basketball assistant, passed away on Monday at the age of 77. The release came out yesterday. Of course, he was a longtime coach under Danny Nee, coached the Nebraska big men, including Big 12 Player of the Year Vincent Hamilton, as well as longtime NBA performer Mikey Moore and Derek Chandler during his time. So a lot of good players under Jimmy Williams, but sad news to hear that really a beloved member of that coaching staff passed away again at the age of 77 on Monday. And we've heard a lot of stories that Gary has shared about Jimmy Williams, especially in his time covering Nebraska hoops and being a student there too, would cross paths with Coach Williams a lot, but definitely sad news on the Nebraska basketball front. Did see this though, guys. Do you know who was celebrating a 105th birthday?
Yes,
Just
I saw this earlier.
Yeah.
And we should celebrate her.
Sister Jean is 105 years old. And from everything I hear, you would not have any clue because of how sharp she remains.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wakes up in the morning, has
105.
bacon for breakfast, for lunch a bacon sandwich, for afternoon snack a plate of bacon, and then you can usually drink your dinner.
Or just have the dry cereal for breakfast.
That too,
That's,
with some Miller High Life in it, just to wet your whistle.
she was born in she was born, 105 years ago, but I want
1919.
1919, but do you realize
The Red Sox curse, I believe, was at 1 year back then.
You realize what took place in 1920? That she is older than. I always bring this up when talking about Sister Jean. She's older than Prohibition.
How about that?
She
Hard to
is
believe.
older than Prohibition.
Is it possible that Sister Jean helped end Prohibition?
I don't know.
I don't know either. I
don't-
wasn't there, so I mean, it's possible.
Some people have that type of presence. That
They didn't talk about that in my Texas history class growing up.
But yes, that is crazy.
How about the
Crazy.
happy birthday, Sister Jean? In fact, all the shows today on the Zone should be dedicated to her.
Hey, you brought up
Big nun overreaction.
You brought up with James about the Deshawn Foster Big Ten Media Days.
I'm
thing.
rooting for him. That wasn't the best start.
It was awkward, but yeah, I don't know. there were people, and I'm not saying here at the station or even Nebraska media.
She looks better at 105 than I do at 41.
Well, yeah, she's. I bet she reads several books a day.
Do you think she gets carded?
I'm going to say probably not.
I'm now just picturing her at like a convenience store buying a 6-pack of Red Dog. They still make that?
Buying chew.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry.
Hey,
man.
do you guys still sell Zima?
Man, we need
Just
to
gonna
see
get some
your ID.
Zima and some Funyuns and call it good.
Why did we again, not saying us, but did people covering the Big Ten go a little too far on Deshawn Foster having just that awkward
They're
moment?
just mean
in
to him?
And like, I just feel like, the UCLA is doomed because, like, okay, I get it. It was weird,
He could still run over you.
but I don't necessarily know if, well, that's just going to completely destroy any type of momentum that they've built in the summer because of weird in the Big Ten.
He's not going to want to go back to school
Big
the
Ten
second
Media
day.
Days. We're talking about an opening statement. Oh,
From UCLA.
That's
First
relatable.
of all, how the hell they end up in the Big Ten? Second, does it matter? Come on. Is this what happens when PJ Fleck isn't asking his kids to be elite this year? We go all in. Not us, but the media goes all in on UCLA and Deshawn Foster. It's his first time. And James was right. It could be nerve-wracking because it's a big swimming venue. And all of a sudden you're standing there and there's this football field down on the ground.
I still think he was trying to be funny and realized that nobody was like getting it. It was awkward delivery, but yeah, I don't think. I mean, it was kind of Scott Frost, a la 2022 of I got to make an opening statement.
This is why
here.
you go up there, you
Okay.
go very Bob Newhart like, rest in peace, and just be like, a horse walks into a bar, bartender asks why the long face, and you get someone to do the rim shot, and then you go on, hey, we're really excited to be here. We have a good group of kids. They work hard. They just the real gym rats. They just want to be in the facility all the time.
He mentioned maybe 6 wins would spell success. That would hit their over 5.5. The money right now that's coming in on the under -130 on 5.5.
I would go under.
Wins. That is a brutal schedule. Like they could hit the under at 5 wins, and I'd still be like, they're
pretty good.
Yeah, it's not terrible.
Yeah.
So that is going to be some tough sledding.
They could be 3-9.
Yeah.
Technically, that would. But you took them out of our game. You can't. They couldn't be the biggest drop off, right? You said you can't say UCLA.
Yeah, just because
that would be that's easy.
Between what they lost from a personnel standpoint, getting into a new conference, and that schedule, it's almost too obvious that they would go from 8 wins and have a bigger fall. I just that would be a tough one right there. But
just try to show him some love, okay?
Yeah. It was okay to have a little fun with his awkward statement, but I've seen people thinking
on the guy.
This gives you an idea of the type of leadership that's at UCLA. Like, I don't know if I go that far.
Like first day of school, and you don't want to come back the next day.
Good Lord,
make fun of your weird haircut.
That is a kind of a lighten up Francis moment. Can I do one quick flex or just laugh about the Yankees?
You're hosting the show. You can do anything you want. Oh, if you're making fun of the Yankees, by all means, screw the next hour of the next show. Just go all in.
Oh, it was great last night. Tie ball game, and all of a sudden a 6 spot there in extra innings to give Cleveland a victory, and Minnesota and Kansas City all losing. That was fantastic.
Royals. Oh man.
Because I've said this about Cleveland, by the way, and now if this happens, you have to hold me accountable one way or the other.
Oh, we will.
If Cleveland gets passed up at any point during this race, they don't win the division. That doesn't mean they don't make the playoffs as a wild card. But if, say, Minnesota or Kansas City, who are both now tied 3.5 games behind Cleveland, if either one of those teams passes Cleveland will not retake the lead. If they fall in the division lead at any point, they're not going to win the division. That's how I feel about it.
I would agree with you. Once they blow it, they're just going to continue blowing it.
Yep.
Currently, Astros are 4 on the Mariners now. So.
They're 5 up now.
5 up.
Yeah.
Good night, AOS.
8-2 in their last 10. 91% chance to make the playoffs there. Boom.
Yeah. It's never a done deal until it's a done deal.
I got to give the NL West some cred here. Got a little bit of a race going on there between the Dodgers, Padres, and Diamondbacks. Diamondbacks only 4 games out.
Well, Giants not in that conversation. That's weird.
No, they're 10.5. The Rockies, Nick Grimm's Rockies are 27.5 out.
Are they still alive in the wild card, though? I should ask Nick. Nick will tell me. Nick gives me a daily Rockies updates. In fact, I should start calling Nick Grimm KOA.
You know what we did not celebrate, by the way? The only team that has been eliminated from postseason contention. The Chicago White Sox did get their 30th win 5 games ago.
Oh, we missed that.
Yes, and they didn't reach 100. Gary's money was that they would get 100 before 30. I said they'll still get 30 before 100, but they are now 30-97 after losing 4 straight.
So you're right. How about that's called a winning streak?
Yeah. They're bad. God,
it
they're bad.
Has been done before. Thank God they don't show them on WGN anymore.
Although they had that inspirational win with Grady Sizemore's debut against the Yankees. It was pretty awesome. Again, the Yankees, sorry.
Being a child of the 90s, and people know because now you think, oh, well, why didn't you just look on the guide on the TV? Well, back in the day, we used to have something called the TV guide. And under WGN, sometimes at 1 o'clock, it would just say MLB baseball. Fantastic. Love watching the Cubs. Can't wait. Going to watch Harry Carey. And then you'd hear Hawk Harrelson, and you'd be watching Chicago White Sox baseball, which in their defense, in this time period I'm talking about, they were good. They were the 1993 AOS champions. I mean, they were a good team. They had a lot of likable players, but I was still always disappointed because I wanted to watch the Cubs.
Oh, chop, two hop, Bolly, JoJo, he gone.
Yeah, that's good.
That was just always very annoying to me.
He gone.
Coming up, we're going to talk to Brandon Vogel. Never annoying, always good information with B Vogues. I want to see if he can calm my nerves about this whole kicking thing too. And there was something that he wrote about on his Substack about turnovers, and we talk about it improving. The number as to which Nebraska would turn the ball over compared to the college football average and previous Nebraska teams is kind of ridiculous. I'll let him put that in perspective as well, and the hope that it gets better. B Vogues joins us as we wrap up the Wednesday show next. Wrapping up the show on a Wednesday, as we always do, with Brandon Vogel of counterread.com joining us in the stream as well. Good morning, B-Vogues. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Excellent. And I want to we'll start with the big news coming out of yesterday. Big news being that 9 out of 10 single digits are on the defensive side, but maybe more impressively, who bookended the 0 and number 9. I know that Malcolm Hartzog is a little bit more slight, but my God, when you put him that close to a guy like Ty Robinson, that's not doing him any favors.
No, it's not. I spent a lot of time kind of looking at the height differential since they were all in a line. I was like, there's got to be some chart here. It's a hidden message. It foretells something, but I couldn't quite make it work. So I'll keep trying to crack the code.
Does it when you see the significance of the single digit thing, and I think this is clearly overtaken the black shirt question that we usually get around this time, but the significance of it and the fact that 9 out of 10 are defensive players, that tells you what?
It effectively is the black shirts announcement
Yeah, pretty much.
for the most part. I mean, I think it's a reflection of where Nebraska's at coming off of last year, but I also think it's a reflection of kind of the type of program Rule said he was setting out to create. And he said it at the end of last season about basically his programs, both at Temple and Baylor, being kind of defense first, middle of the road offense. Question for 2024 becomes can Jamal Banks, the lone single digit on that side of the ball, help Nebraska get up to middle of the road? And I think they will, but in a lot of ways, it's a solidification, I think, of kind of the overall blueprint. It was a kind of a good status check in my mind, even though I get it. Like, yeah, it would have been nice to have at least one more offensive player on there.
But Brandon, I think I get that, but I also think, I mean, it's not the worst thing. Have a really good defense. Nebraska used to always have a really good defense, so it's a great start. And that's the point. It's a start to the season. If you were to do this again in 3 months, you might have more offensive guys. But I see positives rather than negatives.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think if we were to, this is a different conversation, but like, what's your hypothetical, 10 single digits? I think you'd want your quarterback in there. You'd want the offensive lineman can't have it, but you'd want one of your tackles to get acknowledged, even if you couldn't wear it. You'd probably want a big time receiver. You had an offensive lineman, a receiver, and a quarterback, and the other 7 were defense. Like, I think that's kind of where you want to be in major college football. Get your specialists on offense, get really good ones, get your most athletic players, as many of them as you can on defense, because that's the react side of the ball.
I want you to shed some light on a couple of things that are looking to improve in 2024 if this team is to be successful. And I want to get your overall concern with the field goal kicking situation in a moment. But I saw something that you had put out last week on the turnovers and the number 4.2% of snaps in a game where Nebraska turned it over. Can you give everyone a little context of how rare that is, not only for Nebraska football, but for college football as well, and how that number, if it can just come down a little bit, could be huge?
Yeah. I mean, we've seen a lot of turnovers from Nebraska teams over the years, to the point where it's kind of like when they went minus 17 last year, it was like, oh, that's just more of the same. It wasn't the same. So that 4.2% you mentioned, the difference was Nebraska ran so few plays last year, partly by design, because the offense wasn't working all that well. Right. So at 4.2%, they were the worst in the country. There have been 4 teams who have been over 4% turnover percentage in the last 5 seasons. This is the worst by 8 percentage points or 0.8 of a percentage point that I've seen from Nebraska going back to 2002. Is I think where I started. And I think the big thing here is just a little bit of improvement. The national average over the last 5 years is like 1.9%. So Nebraska was more than double in terms of how often they turned it over relative to the number of plays that they ran. So it was insanely elevated to a degree that it took me 8 months of the offseason to even notice it.
I've been, I guess, sort of doom and gloom guy today because
This is true.
as much as we're optimistic about this season and taking a big jump, turnovers being one thing that needs to improve, but also consistency when it comes to kicking the ball through the uprights. I'm listening to Ed Foley talk. Tristan Alvano being 90%. I don't know what that means. I don't know if I fully trust Tristan yet, too. I think we've got to see that. John Hull has been doing some good things by all accounts, but your confidence level if Nebraska has to line up for a game winner against Colorado on September 7th for a 38-yard field goal would be what?
Coin flip, maybe at best, because I don't think you're going to see much against UTEP to allay any of those fears in a real way. I kind of, prior to Alvano's injury, so at the point where we assumed, he's a returning starter, he needs to improve, we all know it. I actually felt pretty good about his improvement in terms of against expectation. He was about 4 points off last year, which a ton of kickers in 2023 jumped from minus to positive. I think 3 of them even ended up on the Groza Award after having a pretty rough season the year before. So it's certainly possible. And then, recently Rule talked about kind of his metrics for college kickers, automatic when the line of scrimmage is inside the 25 makes sense. The strange thing about Alvano is that, he was where he struggled the most was kind of that first band, I think 25 to 34 yards. So you'd kind of naturally expect that to get a little bit better. But with the injury, now you're back into unknown territory. I mean, I think at this point, when you look at kind of the major position groups where you have some question marks, one cornerback, left tackle a little bit in terms of depth, I'd put kicker in that group at this point. So I think that's a pretty valid concern going into the start of season until we see something different.
Nick said, first of all, Nick had me convinced now they're going 0-12, but I'll come back around here when we come back. But he did say, he said a lot of things that made sense. I kid because I love.
I don't do that a
lot. Would Ed Foley have the most pressure this year of any coach on this staff?
Maybe. I think you feel pretty good about all of the defensive guys.
He's pretty good.
Maybe. Yeah, you could say with Butler just because of the late switch that, and also I think there's a little bit of question with Nebraska, even though basically their starting 5 defensive backs were among the 10. I think there's room for improvement, even for a defense that was very good last year against the pass. But yeah, it's probably Foley, and special teams coaches are always going to rank pretty high up there if you have a devoted special teams coach, just because it's so noticeable when special teams aren't good. And when they're just like average, slightly above average, you kind of don't notice them. That's where you want to be. And I hope Nebraska, I think there's hope for Nebraska to get there. Because there are other pieces of special teams when you take out the kicking and the punting that were decent-ish. So yeah. I think they'll be all right. But yeah, when you look at a team that should be better but still have pretty slim margins, special teams becomes a pretty big piece of things.
There was a really good question asked yesterday, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it too, about what is more likely that Nebraska is able to produce in this offense, a 1,000-yard receiver or a 1,000-yard running back?
That's a really good one. I think it's close. I would take a 1,000-yard receiver. Looking recently for a piece I did last week at kind of what this offense has been when Glenn Thomas has been part of it. I think the biggest difference is the passing. Nebraska ran the ball more than 60% of the time. Like that wasn't the case when Thomas was involved with any of this, and circumstances dictated that to a degree too for Nebraska last year. So passing attempts are going to go up. I think with the talent they have at receiver for this team, but even extending out beyond, I think 1,000-yard passers a little bit more likely. 1,000-yard rushers are becoming rarer and rarer in college football in general. So that colors that decision a little bit too.
B-Vogues, what do you got coming up in the Substack, counterread.com? Man, we're
Yeah,
close.
so
We're close.
yeah, we are getting close. Tomorrow, Aaron's going to have some volleyball for everyone. So excited to get going with that as well. And then next week we're into game week, so I kind of have my big season kickoff column coming on Monday that I've been working on and thinking about for a couple of weeks. Then I'm going to buzz up to Louisville for Nebraska volleyball, and then Thursday we'll have the UTEP preview. Speaking of kickers, here's just a bonus fact on the way out. UTEP's returning kicker's name is Buzz Flabian.
Nice.
Fantastic.
That is.
His given name is Wilton Luigi Flavian.
Also good.
Well, yeah, why'd he go with Buzz? Wilton Luigi's even better.
Yep. So get excited, because that made me very excited as I was looking through the tip stuff last night.
Always great stuff with you and Aaron. Appreciate you, my man. Have a great rest of the week.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
It's Brandon Vogel of Countery.com.
It's too bad his name isn't Wilford.
Buzz Flabian.
Because then you could just make it up in the media notes. It was named after Wilford Brimley. It's like,
Buzz.
big fan of Cocoon? No. Quaker oatmeal.
Would you rather have your quarterback or kicker named Buzz?
Definitely not my brother. That didn't go well.
Well, we know how it didn't really go well when you named a football player Spike.
He was just on the wrong team. He was on a poorly coached team. I mean, we're out of time, so this will be something we can talk about Friday. But the way Ed O'Neill pissed away that game, up 21-0 with Spike. Sorry to get off on a tangent here, but to answer the question before we go, Buzz, quarterback.
I think so,
Any
too.
cool name.
I think so,
Any
too.
cool name.
Hey, big thanks to our guests, James Williams and Brandon Vogel. If you missed any of the show, the radio replay is always there for you, whatever you missed or want to hear again. For Joey and Jimmy, I'm Nick. Appreciate you tuning in. We're back tomorrow at 6 a.m. The Connor Happer Show and Crossover is next here on 1620 The Zone.